kuchokera ku bungwe loona za kusintha kwa nyengo la Civil Society for Climate Change, ngakhalenso bungwe lomwe boma lomwe limakambapo pa nkhani za umoyo la Malawi Health Equity Network mwaye na chabe. Nde pakali pano zonse zikuyambika ndikusiyeni m'manja mwa Williams Panda.
Representatives of the academia, led by Professor Emmanuel Kaunda of Rwanda, representatives of the civil society organization. We have Malawi Economic Justice Network, Malawi Health Equity Network, as well as the representative of the education sector, Economics Association of Malawi President, Dr. Betha Bangala, senior officials from the Ministry of Finance, Malawi Revenue Authority, Reserve Bank of Malawi, and all other ministers here present, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Williams Banda. I'll be moderating the session, but considering that we are running late on time, for those doing the presentation, we know that we will make the formal submissions, but maybe we'll stick to 10 to 8 minutes in brief so that we just give us the key issues which are in your presentation. After that session, we'll have also submissions from the floor. Without much ado, let me invite the representative of the Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Heather Kinjati, to welcome you officially to this function. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies. Good morning and Happy New Year. I want to start by reporting to the Honorable Minister that the session was supposed to be led by the ST, Professor Bechan Cheleni, but he is bereaved, and hence I am taking this position on his behalf. The Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Honorable Simplex Chichwara Banda MP, the representative of the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Malawi, the Commissioner General of Malawi Revenue Authority, Mr. Daniel Daka, Director General for the National Planning Commission, Dr. Thomas Muntali, the Chief Economic Advisor to the State President, Mr. Chancellor Kafera Panjila, representatives of the professional bodies here present, ECAMA and others, representatives of the private sector organizations, representatives of the civil society organizations, representatives of faith-based organizations, representatives of the academia, PSs and senior officials from Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, and other ministers here present, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me honor to stand before you this morning here at BICC, where we'll have our first session of the pre-budget consultation for 2025-26 financial year. I therefore wish to welcome you all and request that we feel free to constructively contribute into this process. My task this morning is to request the Honorable Minister of Finance, Honorable Simplex Chichorabanda MP, to officially open the pre-budget consultation meetings, where we will have the first one here at BCC. But however, before I do so, allow me, Honorable Minister, to make some welcoming remarks. Let me begin by indicating that, as we know, attaining the desired outcomes of every program starts with proper planning and programming, and budget preparation and management is no exception. The budget is an instrument for transforming the economy, a catalyst for development. The budget can only produce the much desired and needed results if we get our national priorities right and identify clear, impactful, and attainable goals at the outset. The budget can only produce results if it is prepared, implemented, and managed consultatively and collaboratively. It is against this background that Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs solicit views from all stakeholders on the national budget preparation, implementation, and management in order to come up with a framework that appreciates the desires, the needs, and aspirations of the citizens. It is therefore very necessary and important that we use this gathering to come up with plausible solutions to foreseeable challenges that could affect or negatively impact the implementation of the 2025-26 national budget. This is the first meeting that the Minister is conducting here at BICC, and similar meetings will be held in Blantyre and in Zuzu within the week. At this juncture, Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, it is my humble duty and with honor to request the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Honorable Simplex Chichorabanda MP, to officially open the first pre-budget consultation meeting for the 2025-26 national budget. Honorable Minister, thank you.
Good morning. The good morning response that I'm getting is as if we are still in 2024. Good morning. Happy New Year. Thank you very much. At least that now sounds we are in 2025. Mr. Heatherwick Njati, representing Secretary to Treasury, who are also the PS admin in the ministry. I understand we have Mr. Austin Chumya somewhere, or anyone representing the governor. Oh yeah, thank you. Then we have Commissioner General for MRIA, Dominic Daga. I didn't know you are DD Daga. The Director General National Planning Commission, Dr. Thomas Chataharara Mundari, the Chief Economic Advisor to the President, Mr. Chancellor Gafira Banjira, Professor Emmanuel Kaunda, representing the academia, Dr. Betha Bangara Chikadza, representing the professional bodies led by President, she is the President, but I think this is the Economics Association of Malawi. We have representatives from private sector organizations, civil society organizations, the senior government officials here present. I also understand that we are live, so obviously we have members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great joy and honor that I welcome you and everybody here at BICC and all those following us online and through other media like radio and television to the first 2025-2026 pre-budget consultation meeting. Our gathering here today is a testimony to our shared belief and vision to transform our economy for our people. Let me express my profound gratitude to you all for coming to attend to this particular and very important meeting to deliberate on the direction of our fiscal policy and priorities, aiming at addressing the pressing needs of our people while building a resilient and sustainable economy. As you are all aware, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs that I lead has always prioritized the need to consult various stakeholders in order to solicit views, contributions, inputs to feed into the national budget. I want to make an emphasis on this one. The core business today is for us to get your views, your contributions and inputs in order to come up with a people-friendly budget. And as alluded to by PS Admin, the budget is a crucial tool for fostering economic stability and growth, particularly during times when the economy, just like ours, faces significant challenges. Given the current economic climate, it is essential that we collaboratively identify key areas for the budget to focus on in order to promote sustainable economic growth and resilience for the betterment of Malawians. The past year has been marked by notable progress, but also significant changes. Domestically, we've worked tirelessly to stabilize inflation, strengthen our currency, and improve public service delivery. Yet, the country continues to face persistent economic hurdles, and globally, the world is navigating the adverse impacts of geopolitical tensions, fluctuating commodity prices, and negative effects of climate change. This is the first in a series of national consultative meetings that we have planned in all the regions across the country. Similar meetings will be held in Nzuzu just tomorrow, and immediately after we are done today, we are hitting on the road to Mzuzu. And the last one will be done on Friday, on 17th January 2025, respectively. These are staged meetings, but we also understand that there are some sectors which are very key that we are also going to consult, including the youths. These meetings will provide a platform for all our stakeholders, including the business community, the non-governmental organizations, faith-based organizations, the youth and the academia, and the general public, among others, to present their views and proposals on the 2025-26 national budget. Ladies and gentlemen, according to Public Finance Management Act of 2022, my ministry is mandated to prepare and oversee the implementation of the national budget. To effectively fulfill this mandate, the ministry relies significantly on contributions from the various stakeholders present here today. Allow me, PS admin and all stakeholders here. Sometimes we always ask, do our contributions really matter? The answer is yes. Yes, because if you remember the statements that I have presented before Parliament, I have included and cited some of the contributions that we solicit and get from consultative meetings like this one. This meeting, therefore, is very critical and of utmost importance, as it provides us with the opportunity to gather and solicit your views on the formulation of 2025-26 national budget from a diverse range of stakeholders. The government has set out a skeleton of the 2025-26 budget that is expected to drive the economy towards stability. The preliminary framework is designed to enhance fiscal consolidation whilst positively supporting the financial sector. And furthermore, my ministry is still discussing with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, on the possibility of disbursing resources through the extended credit facility. Therefore, the government plans to implement the upcoming budget using the available revenue realized from tax and other revenues rather than relying on borrowing. Let me remind everyone here that the inputs from this meeting will inform the 2025-26 budget formulation process. The Ministry of Finance will compile all views and suggestions for review and consideration during the budget consolidation process. It might happen that the contributions or some of the contributions might not see the light of the day, or some of them will see the light of the day. The assurance is we are compiling all the views, suggestions, and contributions, and we will revisit them to see their degree of importance so that we incorporate them in the budget through a budget process. It is also important to note that not all suggestions can be accommodated into this one, but they will remain critical in guiding the Ministry of Finance in the budgeting process, as I said. In conclusion, I would like to thank you all for sparing your precious time and coming to attend this pre-budget consultative meeting for 2025-26 fiscal year. Your views, inputs, and suggestions into this budget are crucial in helping us collectively support the government efforts to build and grow the economy for the benefit of our people. I am therefore looking forward to a successful and fruitful meeting. The emphasis here is this process should be participatory and must be participatory. We want you to open up, speak your mind, all suggestions that you think can help come up with a good budget. This is the time. In the spirit of one Malawi, one people and one nation, I declare the 2025-26 pre-budget consultative meetings officially opened. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. All protocols are observed. At this juncture, since the Minister has just opened the floor, I would like to invite Vice Chancellor Emmanuel Kaunda from Luana to represent the academia with their inputs to the 2025-26 budget. Vice Chancellor, sir.
Honorable Minister, the PSS, the Director General from NPC, Dr. Thomas Mutari, my Vice Chancellor from the Longo University of Agriculture and Natural Resource, and let me ride on the protocols already observed by the Master of Ceremonies regarding the different representation that we have here. I'm just waiting for the media to set my presentations on board to start.
Maybe through the minister, as you are waiting for that, you can start your presentation.
Thank you very much. So we have termed, upon the request that came from the Ministry of Finance, we have termed our presentation today as macroeconomic stability through agriculture, pathways amidst recurring climate shocks that we see in the country. And the quickly, of course, I wish the presentations were there, but quickly, of course, would want to bring out the layout of the presentation that we're going to make today. So first of all, we will start with what is the economy coming from? In other words, we would want to look at the past. And then from there, we would want to see what has been done in the agriculture sector by bringing out the trends in terms of the resource allocations and others. And after that, Honorable Minister would want to see what has been the performance of the allocations, whatsoever activities that has been done in the past in the agriculture sector. And moving forward, we would want to conclude with what could be done in order to make our agriculture sector contribute to the macroeconomic stability that we are talking today as a contribution to the Minister of Finance request. We would want to start from here, that we operate under the existing Malawi Vision 2063. And the sector, in terms of the agriculture sector, has also developed an agriculture policy that is in line with the vision that we aspire to achieve come 2063, of which either of them, they do recognize that agriculture is still the engine for economic growth in this country. It contributes 22.3% to the GDP, to the economy. It also amasses 80% of the existing exports that we have in the country, as well as it's a major contributor to employment also. However, this sector is characterized by a variety of challenges. And amidst those challenges, it is the land-fed agriculture. Somebody would jokingly say, we rely on God for us to do our agriculture production or our agricultural activities. Again, our economy is solely dependent on tobacco as the sole forex earner in this country. And moving forward with the challenges, we see a declining agricultural productivity despite the Malawi Vision 2063 highlighting agriculture as the first pillar in order for us to achieve the industrialized middle income country by 2063. Another very critical important challenge is we see missing markets and linkages due to a variety of issues around poor infrastructures, where we cannot connect a farmer to the market within and those markets to the international markets as such. I would also want to go straight into the agriculture policy very quickly. We see that it is highlighted at the first pillar, and it acts as an input to the other pillars in the Vision 2063. In other words, it is aligned, it is relevant to what the country aspires to achieve. And in terms of job creation, especially around value addition, agro-processing, and others, and we see the sector coming strongly under the ATMM, the agricultural, tourism, mining, and manufacturing strategy, which we also have in the country. Due to that, the ministry, or in general the sector, has put together 6 priority areas, of which among them is sustainable agricultural production and productivity, commercialization, value addition and agro-processing, sustainable natural resource management, we have water, land and others there, and also research, including institutional development, as well as coordination issues. Honorable Minister, allow me to also begin by looking at the resource allocation. What we see is the government, or the Minister of Finance, has managed to allocate resources within the ministry or in the sector as stipulated and demanded by the Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, which we basically call a CADEP. And I understand our minister and the Minister of Agriculture was in Kampala 2 days ago, where they were declaring or endorsing another compact of the same CADEP. In other words, as a country, we have managed to allocate above or within the 10% requirements. But there's another question that comes. Where do those resources go? Where do those resources go? We see that most of those resources indeed come from the development partners and also some from government. And this is what we see. But we also see that out of the 6 pillars of the ministry or of the sector, much of those resources have been going to sustainable production as well as institutional development, of which, if we go deeper into the resource allocation, we see that the majority goes towards the affordable input program, of which it clouds out other critical investments such as research, irrigation, extension, mechanization, markets, as well as agro-processing. We have also seen that there are critical questions that we need also to ask for the sake of time. That is the program that is taking a lot of resources within the sector, giving us the intended intentions that we have in terms of forex generations. If it does, has it been effective? And who is benefiting? And then, are those who are benefiting efficient enough that we could be able to say this instrument that is taking over a 70% of the resources within the ministry or within the sector is able to let us what we would want? There are several reasons to it. One of which, there is a reality check that the souls are tired. Whatsoever we give into our souls, there has been a decline of the gains out of our NPK or chemical fertilizer that we apply. In other words, from 1960s into now, there has been a constant decline to the gains that we get out of the fertilizer that we apply in our soils. The other one is the climate shocks. Over the past 5 years, each year in and out, we see the shocks. The Idai, the Anna, the COVID, the flood, the El Nino last year, and this year we were told there would be La Nina, but we see something different. And there's a question: what are we exporting vis-a-vis what we are subsidizing? And we see that we subsidize maize, we export pulses, tea, sugar, cotton, tobacco, which are not subsidized, and yet would want to generate forex for the economy. And most of those that we export, they are also exported raw. It's basically like our country is a ground for people outside to do their basic production and get the things for them to use. The missing opportunity which we could take advantage of. We did a rapid assessment for the past few weeks, Honorable Minister. We went to see what is happening to our farmers. And what we saw is, out of those that we visited, each one of them had planted. But 96% of them, they have experienced the dry spells. They have also experienced the attack, the 4 armyworms, which the sector just had a press release. And that resulted into 86% of them, basically 55% of them uprooting the crops that they cultivated. Of course, they have replanted. But what have they replanted? They have planted recycled local varieties. And yet initially, they had planted hybrid varieties. There is a productivity loss there due to the shift and due to the challenges that our farmers are facing now. Those are some of the pictures that we took in the field. For armyworms, a farmer approaching the maize that they planted, and then they would want to replant them. And these are issues that are coming from the field. We are not making them out of our head. We would want Honorable Minister to appreciate the challenges that are there, which I would inform the decisions. Then how has the agriculture sector performed? Quickly, these are the graphs. I'm not going to waste much of the time for non-economists, but this graph basically says that any other thing that happens in the agriculture sector has got an impact in the general economy that we have. A decline in agriculture sector, there's a decline in gross domestic product. There is also a decline in the current account that we see there. In other words, this sector still remains critical for the Malawi economy. Moving forward with the same.
Consider winding up.
What pathways do we have? In conclusion, we have prioritized a few of them, and the first one is mega and anchor farms. We cannot be doing business as usual by investing in smallholder farmers who are fragmented, scattered, making it difficult for the markets to do the aggregations. However, we understand that these smallholder farmers, there are some that are productive, which need to go to the anchor farms. But also in the mega farm, we need to make sure that we prioritize high-valued crops, livestock, as well as agriculture. The second one is we need to start thinking about mechanizing our agriculture sector. As we are today, only 1% of our farmers have access to mechanized agriculture, suggesting that the majority of them, they still use a hoe, which may not take us afar. Sustainable irrigation development is also needed. As we speak, we are still waiting for God in heaven to give us lanes. And yet he gave us the lake, and he gave us the rivers. What are we doing? We thought that could be an area for investment, Honorable Minister. Other areas about the fatigue that our soils have. We need to start moving towards soil health. The organomineral becomes critical as per the speech that the President, Honorable Minister, also made in Neno when they were presenting, or he was launching the AIP for this season in particular. That's an area through which research could be amplified in order for us to be doing them generally. Through that, we would be reducing spending our forex on buying fertilizer, which we can afford within the country. The other part is the structured markets. Our markets are not there. Our farmers are able to produce, but where to sell, it's not, they can't find. That becomes a disincentive for them to proceed with the agriculture. Another one is the input supply. Our seed system, by virtue of 76% of them are planting hybrid, by the virtue of a shock, that number comes down to 30%. That alone tells a story about the seed system that we have, the input supply system that we have, which can be extended to other areas. And this is one of the Lord, Honorable Minister, where we went, and it becomes a little bit difficult during times as this, where they cannot really connect between or within one another. Other areas that would need attention of this budget is agro-processing and value addition. As indicated earlier, we cannot be a playing ground for people to be buying things that are in low supply, that are in low content or product. We need to start to think about adding value to them. And when we go into the international markets, we find that because our colleagues are able to grade, to sort, they are able to sell our products at a higher price. And yet our farmers are being given peanuts. We thought that is another area through which interventions could go. Another one is an academic extension linkages. As universities, we produce graduates. Some of our graduates are misplaced. The reason is there could be a missing link between the academia and the public sectors as well as the private sectors. It will be important if the linkage could be strengthened so that the skill sets matches what we aspire. Honorable Minister, there is a resource ADMAC as well as the strategic grain reserves. The table that we see, those are the prices that I visited with my team under the delegation by the Vice Chancellor. We found that ADMAC sells maize per kg around 800 there, 790 and 800. But the vendors are selling the same maize at 1,000. Those are Godre people, then 1,300. But others are also leaping out of a kg, 2,000, making access to maize very expensive. What we saw is maize is on the ground, but they cannot afford it because it's becoming expensive. Resourcing ADMAC would be an option, Honorable Minister, and we could do that in advance so that we are able to buy things out before the middlemen or other exploiters take advantages of our farmers. Honorable Minister, I have a very last slide which is coming. But before I go there, I wanted to show that building and the people you see, that's our offices in terms of the agriculture extension planning areas. These offices are in the villages. These offices are motivators for the youth, girls, women, and others to go into agriculture, both on a blue-collar job like mine and also to do dirty job of farming. Very few people would work there, and they would not be motivated to come and join agriculture, which is still the engine for this economy. Honorable Minister, it will be very critical if we start to think about how we can strengthen the agriculture extension system in this country, starting from where our frontline staff work. The last slide, Honorable Minister, is about renewable energy. We are from Bunda. Here, every day we go to the office, we see motorbikes and bicycles carrying charcoal bags. They are depleting our natural resources. Those natural resources could be used for climate financing. The reason is there is a demand in town where they would want to be using wood and charcoal. Honorable Minister, it will be very important if this budget that is coming could invest into renewable energy such as gas, so that it could become accessible to the people in the urban areas. And through that, we will be able to address the deforestation that is taking shape in the country. Moving forward, the agro-enterprise development programs. We have a lot of youth that we have trained. Some of them are in the villages. We need to set up, more or less like the Malawi Young Pioneer eras, which of course some of us were told stories, but the stories were nice. Those places could become incubations, the model centers, where young ones could go and learn different skills, not only in agriculture, but moving forward to the other nodes of the chain, such as agro-processing. We could be able to set micro manufacturing industries within the communities that could be able to create jobs for them. Through that, adding value, exporting products, managing our economy. Lastly, the Agri-Research and Innovation Program. The agronomineral case studies that we are speaking today, they were supposed to be done decades ago. But we haven't invested as a country. Given the movement, given the high political will that is there, Honorable Minister, that's an area where research could take advantage of, so that we are able to substitute imports of these inorganic fertilizers to other things. Moving on the same, we are suffering of climate issues year in, year out. And lastly,
you should be winding up.
Yes, lastly, to make an emphasis, the pest that we saw from the field, we should not be discussing about them today. There is an underfunding which requires your attention, Honorable Minister. Moving forward, indeed, lastly, the mining sector becomes critical. We are hearing news in the social media, but I'm not going to go into the social media, Honorable Minister. But say this, that's an opportunity for us to finance our agriculture. Lastly, as we invest towards mechanizing our agriculture, there will be other smallholders that will be very unproductive, and they may find outside the instrument that the capitalistic economy would be able to take advantage of. we are suggesting, Honorable Minister, that the cash plus interventions would still be critical. In other words, they belong somehow to the social protection instruments instead of productive instruments. Reaching this far, those three dots were to say thank you. Last year when we had to give our request, you have funded some. E.g. Mike is able to provide finances. We have seen NIF going into agriculture. We have seen Agicom providing resources there. But we would want you, Honorable Minister, to do more. By virtue of that, allow me to end the presentation here, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Luana. Honorable Minister, next is the Economic Association of Malawi, which will be led by Dr. Betha Banga. Thank you.
Good morning. I'll ride on the protocols that have been observed already. And we'll just present on the few recommendations that as ECAMA consolidated with our membership. But briefly, I'll just talk about the summary of the performance of the economy last year. Okay, so we all know that last year, GDP didn't grow as expected, even though we projected about 3.2. By the time we are reaching at the end, for example, maybe November, it was revised downwards. And this was due to El Nino that we had last year. And also, this impacted the agricultural productivity, not just in maize, but also other things. And on top of that, we also noted foreign exchange shortages, which disrupted supply of strategic commodities. But we also noted that the budget lacked some realistic assumptions. And so this also affected the implementation. For example, we had a budget that was amounting to 5.98 trillion, and this accounted, in terms of recurrent expenditures, about 4.21 trillion. And also 70.4% of the expenditures, and we applauded the government that at least we allocated 30% to development. However, when we looked closely, we noted that development financing was coming from the donors. And so a little of the amount that we had was coming from, our sources. And so looking at the performance of the budget at mid-year, we noted that grants underperformed with about 61.7%. And if grants underperformed, with about 78% of the development budget being funded by the donors, this meant that we are also stifling our development. And on top of that, we also noted that domestic revenue underperformed also. This figure of the table just highlight the underperformance at mid-year with those variances. In general, the total revenue and grants amounted to 22.3% in underperformance, but grants only were 61.7%. And if I had to go deeper, and then we noted that grants from foreign governments actually underperformed by 88%. And then from international organizations, by 60%. And this just gives us a reality of our budget, that if we devote much of our belief in the international organizations or development partners, if we don't get the required amount, then our budget gets affected. Another thing that we noted was on inflation, because the budget assumed inflation would hover around 28%. However, over the year, we noted that things didn't go as planned, as food inflation rose up to 43%, and headline inflation up to 33%, and so on. And so we would also, I think, ask probably that as we are thinking of a realistic budget, inflation should really be modeled perfectly so that we yield the required results. In terms of monetary policy, this is also not highlighted, but we noted that the policy rate rose last year to 26% from 24%. And this also affected somehow even in terms of budget financing, because as we know that government funds part of the budget through domestic borrowing. And so this also needs to be taken into consideration, for example, when we are formulating the 2025-2026 budget. Also to note is the foreign exchange reserves, which has been an issue that almost everyone knows. As we can see, the import cover fell significantly, and also the reserves in this case fell. However, to note is that the private reserves were steady, and this also has, I think, implications on some of the regulations that the government has implemented. However, if we can see on merchandise trade, you know, as a country, our exports have always fallen short of imports. So we have a large appetite for imported products. And these are actually affecting how our foreign exchange are performing. And this also comes as a recommendation as we go on for the current, the budget that is going to be implemented to take into consideration. In addition, we also noted money supply growth, and much as we might not know how it impacts inflation, but as policy rate was rising and the liquidity reserve ratios were being changed, you know, now and then, we also noted that still money supply was rising, meaning that there was, you know, some deliberate measures to influence the money supply. However, this was actually inconsistent with the efforts of curbing inflation over the year. And this is also coming as a recommendation because we wanted to highlight what has happened in the previous budget, but also in the previous year, so that at least when we're talking about policy consistency between the Reserve Bank, but also the part of the fiscus, or the fiscal policy should align itself to what monetary policy intends to achieve, because these seems like, you know, two diverging things that are trying to achieve something at the end. And briefly on the recommendations that we noted is that I highlighted previously on grants. So we're hoping that in the budget that is going to be formulated, grants will not be given the priority that has been given over the years, because we noted by mid-year grants underperformed actually badly. And so if we are centering our belief that donors are going to give us this, and we're going to implement this, and we're going to develop this. Going forward, it seems like we are actually shooting ourselves in the foot, because with this, it means even a development cannot take place because grants are underperforming, every year, even though we are winning the confidence of the donors. Probably it's time we come to reality with whatever is on the ground and not giving it so much confidence. In addition, while we'll be advocating for certain sectors, for example, ATMM, I'm happy that the previous presenter also talked about a lot in agriculture. But we would want the social sectors to get the minimum international levels in terms of allocation. For example, maybe 10% of national budget to agriculture, which he talked about CAD, and also 15% to health, and so on and so forth, because we cannot move forward in our aspirations in achieving the Malawi 2063 if we are failing to attain basics, for example, in health, the basics in maybe anything in social services. I would also want to highlight a lot, because we are saying we have to align the budget with the agriculture, tourism, mining, and there is also manufacturing in there. But we noted that the last year's budget, actually mining was probably less than 1% allocation. Tourism was about 400 and something billion. And this does not align very well with a country that wants to develop, with a country that wants to turn from an agriculture-based economy to one that is manufacturing, that is exporting at least processed goods. So if we look at, for example, 2021-2022 financial year up to 2024-25, and then the revised budget of 2024-2025, the green big bar is just agriculture. And then we have the tourism and mining barely, showing there. And these are the ones that we're terming low-hanging fruits. So if these are things that if we invest, we can always get something out of that, why are we not allocating the much needed financing? Because these are things that we need currently. If we are talking about mining, then let's move the resources to reflect whatever we're talking about, but also the aspirations that we want to achieve as a country. Yes, it is an agricultural economy, but this has so much entered into our head that sometimes we give less importance to other things that can overtake agriculture. So probably we should start thinking of how we can invest, or how much we can put into tourism. How much can we put into mining? How much is the government pumping into mining? Because it seems like we're just waiting for others to come, exploit the resources, and then we get some peanuts out of whatever they will produce. This is just also a reflection of the development budget that I was talking about from 2016 to 2024-2025. As we can see, much of the resources is going to a recurring expenditure. However, when we take the development budget and we dissect the development budget for all the years from 2016 to 2024, a lot of it is being financed by development partners. So the foreign financed part one and domestic part two. And so we can see that domestic is always smaller, smaller, smaller. And most of the times, even with that part, at mid-year, we also tend to take some money out of it and finance the recurrent. This is also something probably that we need to think, Honorable Minister, if we are going to achieve something as a country, because the development budget is what we really need to transform this country. I'm glad that my colleague from Luana mentioned a lot about resilience in the agricultural sector. Probably it's time that we need to invest in the right places. I think as a country we have glorified the consumer so much that we tend to fail to recognize the producer. Why am I saying this is, oftentimes we see a lot of money allocated to AIP, and then some money allocated to ADMAC, and also for some, grain reserves, maybe 12 billion or so. But it is the same person that we were planning to give the AIP, the same person we still believe they will be hungry somewhere and go to ADMAC to buy some maize. If half of this money was moved to mechanization, to irrigation, and to transforming the agricultural sector in large farms, even these people whom we give AIP to would have been employed in the mega farms, getting something, and then be able to buy even maize at the end of the month. So probably it's high time we moved this, I would say, politically driven AIP, Honorable Minister, because it is not helping the country. If we can just pick that graph I'm showing there, is about inflation in the country. Whenever we're lamenting about inflation getting high, the blue bigger part is just coming from food inflation. Meaning that if we just control the food inflation, as a country we'll be talking about inflation ranging to 12% or something, which monetary policy can control. However, we might need coordination, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Agriculture. We need to hold some people accountable, because every year we are allocating money to agriculture, but no one is being held accountable for not producing maize maybe in the required 3-4 months that we're supposed to have. Because by now, we are not supposed to be talking about hunger. We also, Honorable Minister, need to invest in our meteorology department, because as my colleague was talking about maize being planted and then uprooted, I believe this would have been avoided if people had the right information and being told not to plant, but plant maybe by December, because by then they would have kept their seeds. So this is also something that we need to invest. It's not just maybe in agriculture, but it also needs, these spurs even in other sectors, aviation and so on. If we're talking about tourism, but then we are failing to give accurate weather to maybe those who are flying the planes, then I think it is something that, we need to look into as a country. One thing that I think I've also wanted to talk about is capacitating ADMAC, Honorable Minister. I see every year some money being allocated to ADMAC, but also NFRA. However, this issue of missing markets that we see, I still feel that ADMAC is better placed to even purchase maize from the producers who are in the villages, maybe the private sector. And also it can even consolidate these from the private sector, and as markets are being established by government with other governments, we should be able to export through ADMAC. We lost the Sudan deal. I think that's something that should come to us clearly, that something is wrong. So ADMAC should come in as it used to play back in the days. Go early in the field. We can invest in solar dryers. I heard my complaints about purchasing maize just because there is a lot of moisture content, but ADMAC can dry the maize and consolidate it from the private sector and then facilitate into the market. And this can actually control the hunger, can control the maize prices, but it can also rake in the foreign exchange reserves that we have always needed. In continuing, we also want to highlight the issues of fiscal consolidation, Honorable Minister. As I talked about that, As a country, our revenues haven't been performing very well. However, there have been much talked about issues, for example, of collecting taxes from the informal sector. Honorable Minister, it's a song that as ECAM and also other people have been talking about. However, we are not too sure on where we are and what are the limitations. Because when we go to other neighboring countries, we see how the informal sector has been consolidated, aggregated, and then government is getting something out of that. Because in Malawi, the largest economy is the informal sector. And so probably it's high time we needed to venture into this, because by just taxing a few, maybe individuals and corporations, we are milking a cow that is already in. But also, this cannot go without saying about issues of fiscal discipline, Honorable Minister. If as a country, we can get all the revenue, we are not prudent in spending, and we're not spending all the right things, then Honorable Minister will not achieve the aspirations of the Malawi 2063, but also the MIP1. So as government, probably it's high time we started looking at the planned expenditures and spend within that amount, because if we can see the fiscal balance there is like that in the graph, but external debt is rising, domestic debt is rising, probably because we are not spending within the means that we're supposed to spend, and our revenues are not containing everything that we're supposed to spend. But also, Honorable Minister, I have the privilege of maybe looking at allocations to IFMIS, which always every year gets 6 billion, 4 billion, and so on and so forth. And sometimes we tend to question that, are we really still developing components in the IFMIS? Because by now we're supposed to have everything, including human resource, including procurement, and everything running through IFMIS, Honorable Minister. Because this can save a lot of leakage in our revenues. I'm saying this, Honorable Minister, because the next graph that I'm going to show you is about the leakages that happens in government. When I'm talking about reducing revenue and tax leakage, Honorable Minister, we are losing that much.
Should we
In
consider
government
winding up?
donor-funded, thank you, I'm just winding up. Donor-funded projects, we are losing about 9.1%, and through clients, 17.1%, and gross government loss is 28.3%. And if we are to take about the whole budget, almost $1 trillion plus tend to be lost before the budget is implemented or spent. This is something that I think we need to scrutinize, Honorable Minister, because we might be talking about revenues being less, but a lot is just being lost along the way. And these are also some actual budget escalation losses in the sectors. I would also want to highlight, even though I said earlier on, Honorable Minister, about the tourism, the roads, even to Nkopola, just connecting Balaka, Liwonde, are in bad shape. We cannot be talking about a low-hanging fruit tourism if we cannot invest in just putting a good road, a bare minimum road with no potholes, Honorable Minister. And this is something that I think in the current, the budget that is going to be implemented, should at least take into account some of these, so that at least we correct the problems in the tourism. Issues of energy, Honorable Minister, are critical to the country, and my friend already talked about that. But I also wanted to just highlight that as a country, probably it's high time we set up a fund Annually, we can be putting in something that, for example, whenever we have cyclones, we can be drawing from that fund and probably set up whatever was destroyed. I'm sure the development partners can take this as something that is tangible and maybe invest in it. So we need something that can at least reduce even the deforestation that is happening in the rural areas in terms of charcoal, because that graph just tells us, you know, how energy is being distributed in the country, with urban having at least a higher percentage, but the rural is lower. Also, issues of foreign exchange challenges have been highlighted. I would not labor the point, but it's high time probably we start thinking of critical ways of earning foreign exchange, other than maybe just relying on the donors and also a few exports. I talked about probably the government investing heavily in mining, but also issues of, for example, liberalizing some trade flows, because if we look at how trade flows from the country, there are some hiccups that are actually hindering exports. And sometimes they favor we see even our crops being consolidated in Longwe, while Malawians cannot do the same. So this is just something that I think we can look into. But also issues of foreign fuel challenges, Honorable Minister. Maybe it's high time we invest in rail transport, linking us maybe to Tanzania and also the ports in Beira, but also investing in pipelines which can transport our strategic commodities. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you so much, Ekama. Honorable Minister, next is the Malawi Economic Justice Network, and the presentation will be made by Ms. Betha Libipapili. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Finance, and also let me just write on all protocols observed. I bring to you submissions from Malawi Economic Justice Network, MEGEN, and just in complimenting the last two presenters that have already presented their submissions. And I'm saying I'm complimenting the submissions that would be considered for the upcoming 2025-2026 fiscal year budget. All this coming to you, honorable ministers, and all delegates here present, within the mandate of MEGEN, that we generate them from the citizens' point of view, based on the policy advocacy work that we do, bringing down policies at macro level to the people, interpreting budgets, analyzing them through the district level consultations, district council consultations, but also leveraging the national partners that we engage with at national level. So this is a synthesis of the broader emerging issues that the citizens feel need to be presented and also considered for the coming
fiscal year. I also bring to you the same on the basis of the analysis and the reports that we do. Much more that Megin touches on the ground and see to it that people really are a recipient of the resources that we do plan year in, year out. And so my presentation has a human face and a human touch because we interact at the ground. I thought I would need to make that in my initial statement. So we really appreciate for the invitation made. Now looking into the policies that we translate, but also the interpretations that we bring down to the people, citizens realize, but also as an institution, we take note that the budget framework is much more of a compulsory payment that has been on the high rate, whereby these payments are mostly shared within the key 3 sectors: agriculture, education, and health, in that order. And now, because of the budget compulsory payments, it confirms that the budget has been mostly of welfare focused than being investment focused. Citizens still believe and see to it that we are doing little to diversify our economy because of the hardships that they are met up with in the day-to-day living. Not only that, through the same analysis, we recognize high and unsustainable debt levels. There is also an unrealistic budget assumption, as Ekama has already alluded to, emanating from the growth projections, but also the broader economic fundamentals that citizens do not really get meaning out of it, seeing what projections are being put in the budget framework vis-a-vis their day-to-day life of living. And so these are some of the issues that are coming across in our interactions with the citizens at all levels. Not only that, Honorable Minister, we also have been doing analysis through review of the national blueprint, the Malawi vision. And so within the same work that we do, citizens would desire to have an aligned budget that requires prioritization on the expenditure on the production sectors, already alluded to in the MIP1, the strategy, the Malawi Vision 2063, in a way that they do not see the alignment matching what we have put in the policy, but also the investment and allocations put in our budget. All this through the budget analysis and the consultations done at all levels. And as an institution, Megin, we acknowledge the existence of the ATMM strategy, as the colleague has already said. Not only that, but also we take note that the budget has not been very consistent to the strategy, as we indicate that there is still mismatch between the budget framework and the national policies, be it MIP1 as a strategy, but also the ATMM strategy. We see all this that it is very paramount that the budget should be consistent at all levels. I think the National Planning Commission had presented through various platforms that there is the development model that would want to see that if government is to really realize the aspirations in the 2063, it must invest in particular sectors as the priorities of the MIP1. But we see mismatch that the budget did not actually adhere to the development model. Not only that, the budget should also promote agriculture diversification from the crops. Citizens on the ground, they still feel that commercialization is yet to meet up with them in their groundwork. Cooperatives and also farmer groups remain key to attaining increased farm production. However, on this one, engaging with the citizens across the nation, in the district we are working, farmers still feel that the decentralization and the registration process of the cooperatives is very key to the process. On the same alignment with the Malawi vision, we take cognizance through the 2024 alternative mining in our conference we had, that mining sector remains underdeveloped. It's a fact, and it sits in the same context with most citizens in Malawi, and that largely it is being seen as still being disorganized despite its potential for economic growth. So the submission here is that the budget should consider the need to build staff capacity in the Ministry of Mines, but also finance in the same sector for better growth. Not only that, Ekama talked about energy. This is also an issue that came, that stable energy remains paramount. The same mismatch that would want to industrialize mining, but our energy levels still more are very far, fully-fledged for us to connect the dots so that we can be really industrializing mining. So energy remains paramount in the mining sector as one of the key submissions coming from our constituents. Continuing with the same alignment, issues of governance, that the citizens to request that governance and human rights and accountability institutions should still be financed properly, because these are vital to democracy for better checks and balances. The ACB and Malawi Human Rights Commission and Office of Ombudsman, among others, would also require to be funded stably. But also in the same context of human capital development, government should actually consider resuscitating the community technical colleges. These have been dying, initiatives from the former administration. Still more citizens feel that if we revitalize these colleges, it will be an initiative that would help as a magic bullet for self-employment. All that coming into the context that citizens still more are living in hardships.
You have 4 minutes to consider winding up.
Thank you. Additionally to the same, there are issues of exogenous shocks. I wouldn't be able to speak much because the Civil Society for Climate Change would also add on to the same. On the alignment, the request also comes aboard in the cognizant that we know that 2025 budget would be financing elections, and so citizens would want to request that we ensure that the budget is insulated from political pressures, given the serious economic challenges that Malawians are presently experiencing. Another submission, Honorable Minister, is actually coming from the whole broader context of our efforts as government towards domestic resource mobilization. Looking at the analysis of the policies, but also the budget and the revenue generated, we see to it that the fiscal pressure remains high. The budget deficit is widening each and every year, and so there is need for enhanced domestic resource mobilization. In this context, Honorable Minister, the taxation system is being perceived to be discriminatory on the citizen point of view, and that it is benefiting much rich people more than the poor, but also to the extent that the gap between the rich and the poor is getting bigger, and that we are not curbing the inequality gap properly. Individuals from small businesses are paying more taxes through their small businesses, and so the submission is that we need to ensure that there is equitable distribution of income by actually affecting higher taxes on income earners. Not only that, but also easing up the fiscal pressure by countering tax avoidances and tax evasions that will happen with the foreign direct investors in our mining communities. Additionally, we took note that the Malawi government is losing a lot of revenue through some of the FDIs, as I talked about. We are in the mining areas in Kasia and Cheu, but also Mangochi, where we really are to regularize or legalize mining if we are to actually benefit a lot from that. So this is largely through some of the policies that we put in place, issues of tax holidays and avoidance, that within the same sampling of the minerals, we are not able to move some steps so that we can actually attest to the fact that mining should be bringing the much needed revenue to government. Drawing closer to the submissions under domestic resource mobilization is the fact that the budget should rationalize tax inequalities and inefficiencies between the corporate entities and ordinary citizens by actually getting the place through which we can consult more and get some feedback from a larger context. And secondly, government should be transparent in a way it consults regarding awarding of the tax holidays. The same tax policy measures, there is still more opaqueness in terms of the foreign direct investments that we venture into such agreements. Much more that we do not actually get to attest what Malawians are getting out of it. So all that coming in the context that in as far as we rely on foreign support or grants, but DRM is also a game changer, and that within the tax policies we are losing much more revenue that could be generated. So coming to this far, Honorable Minister, Malawi Malawi is being exploited, not getting much more benefits from the taxation system on the same realm that our policies need to be relooked. At this juncture, I leave you with that reflection that the policies are there. Malawians are still seeing that gap within the policy and the budget allocation, and that perhaps we are not committed, not because we don't know, but and we don't know what to do, because policies are there. The National Planning Commission had generated actually the vision, and with a clear strategy. We also have the 8mm strategy. So reaching this far, I submit, Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mejin. Just to remind that we will be given eight minutes. So make sure that our presentation are precise. Time. At this juncture, Honorable Minister, let me invite the education sector led by Dr. Limbani Sabato. Thank you. After the education sector, we'll go to the health sector, considering that we have been requested by the CISONEC to come last. So, Mr. George Jobe, you should get set.
Honorable Minister, and all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen, I'm representing the education sector based on the discussions and analysis that we have been doing within the civil society education coalition, but also NGO, CCR, and other actors that are interested in the education sector. Why investing in education is crucial? Honorable Minister, you are a product of the education sector, so I don't need to give a lot of details on this. But suffice to say that if we are not going to invest in the education sector, then we'll have challenges in achieving Malawi 2063 vision, as well as sustainable development goals. And I think since this presentation will be shared, I'll not read everything, but just to highlight that since we are talking about budget and allocations, with 2030 approaching fast, African governments are urged to allocate 6% of the GDP and or 20% of the national budget towards education if we are going to make a difference, and especially given that we have a lot of students that need to be catered for. Nearly 8 million students in the education sector, and they need to be supported. Now, what are the education sector issues that we need to consider as we are planning the fiscal year? I think the broad one is that recent sector reviews show that we have serious challenges to address before 2030. I think the bottom line is that we are off track to achieve sustainable development goals, especially goal number 4 on education, as well as MIPI 1 indicators. Recent reviews on the performance on achievements show that we are lagging behind. So, for example, in early childhood development, 60% of the children who are eligible ECD due to infrastructure challenges, shortage of caregivers, and even the caregivers that are there, they are not getting the promised honorarium, but also the learning materials are in short supply, and the budget is very low, okay? And in most cases, 90% of the development budget is supported by donors. So if these donors go away, then it means we are really in big challenges. Then at primary level, we have high dropouts. I was checking the EMIS reports from 2020 to now. I've added the number of dropouts, and we've seen that around 1 million children have dropped out from primary education. This is a big challenge in our system. But also, those in school below 40% achieve the required numeracy and literacy levels. So we are looking at 60% that are just going there just to play and not achieve the required literacy levels. Yeah, manable examinations continue to disadvantage poor children from finishing primary education. Last week, Manable released a press statement saying that the registration for PSLCE, JCE, and MSCE, that went on very well. It went on successfully. But the statement missed the fact that thousands of children, candidates, haven't been able to register for the exams because of fees. I counted the number of candidates from Utshoro, from Mulanja and Palombe. I got nearly 5,000 candidates were not able to register because of lack of fees. And some of them are primary school candidates who are supposed to enjoy the benefits of free primary education. But where it matters most after working and staying in school for 8 years, they are asked to pay examination fees and they cannot manage. Then at the secondary level, we see that there is low net enrollment rate of around 16%. So 84% of candidates from primary who are eligible are not enrolling in secondary, which is a challenge. And more than 50% of children who need to access bursaries are locked out. And if we look at the learning outcomes at the secondary level, MSCE, pass rate is below 60%, showing that the majority, again, they spend all the years in secondary, but they fail, and they end up repeating or dropping out completely. In higher education, we have limited access, and at just 2% of those that are eligible, they are accessing. And the majority of the students in our higher education institutions, especially those are from poor backgrounds, they are able to access the loans, but they still have challenges. Every day we have stories of students not paying fees. In adult education, we have annual enrollment averaging 100,000, but when the policy of adult education was being launched, the target was 400,000. So you can see where we are. And then the budget, again, is less than 1% of the education budget. And if we go to children's special needs, at every level, we see that these are neglected, below 5%. And across various areas, we have shortages of teachers. Honorable Minister, I'm sure you've heard the cry of those that have finished their training in college, around 20,000 teachers, primary teachers, but they can't be recruited. What we are hearing is recruitment of auxiliary teachers who are not even getting their motivation. But also the EMIS of last year showed that the primary schools need at least 40 million textbooks for us to achieve a textbook pupil ratio of 1:1. So the previous budget had shown procurement of 5 million. So you can see the shortfall there. Okay. Oh, it has jumped. Yeah. But now, coming to sector financing challenge, you can see from the graphs there, I hope you can see, that indeed, I think the graph is showing an upward trend in terms of financing, so that is good. Bravo for that. But if we look at the analysis in terms of the education share of the budget and the GDP, we see that as a country, we are below the benchmark of 6% of GDP and 20% of the budget. So this is something that we need to consider. But otherwise, our investment is giving us this pyramid in terms of enrollment. So you can see that at ECD, we are close to 2 million students enrolling. Primary, we have 5.4 million. But now, at secondary, we have 540,000 students. And in higher education, you only have 80,000 enrolled. So you can see that the higher you go, you get challenges. And just imagine a primary school student now. If you tell a primary school student that you should be ambitious, work hard, so that you achieve higher education. Look at 5.4 million versus 80,000. You see that it's more or less impossible for that child, especially if they are coming from rural areas. So we need to do a lot to invest more in infrastructure at secondary as well as at the higher education levels. So in terms of specific priorities, we need to look at infrastructure because, as I said, the higher you go, you get limited opportunities to access education. And it's a bad story for our children. So we need more classrooms, we need more schools, we need more universities, and so on. Teacher recruitment and remuneration, including ECD caregivers, adult literacy instructors, the lecturers in the universities, and so on. We have been singing a song of Mberewa University. We are hoping that by now, at least we should have the university up and running. But I hope that the Honorable Minister, you do your best so that it should not form part of the campaign promises for September. This should be done and dusted. The bursaries, we need more bursaries. I was interacting with the head teacher of one of the schools. I will not mention their name or school for fear of reprisals. They're saying that the government bursary stopped in terms of enrolling more students to benefit because the money that is allocated has remained static for the past 5 years, and they cannot take in more students. Special needs learning centers to support children with special needs. Teaching and learning materials, these are very critical. And the examinations, I mentioned that. But also natural disasters, flooding, cholera cases, and these worsen social protection for children in school. We have also noted that, yes, the money may be allocated, but the performance in terms of the budget has been slow, and we did a mid-year review, and we saw that the performance at the mid-year, in general, there was the performance, especially for development expenditures, including the donor support projects. So like Minister of Education vote 250 there, we saw that there was the 39% underperformance because of slow implementation of development projects. And also there was 34% PE budget overruns to care for salary adjustments. This is something we see, but the main news is that when there is underperformance, it affects service delivery, especially if we are aspiring quality of education. The same story for Ministry of Gender, vote 320, which includes adult education, early childhood education, and so on. And we noted that, for example, the donor-funded budget underperformed by 52%. And this was really a big problem because, as I said, in the Ministry of Gender, 90% of our ECD budget is coming from donors. And this is a big challenge. Now, coming to recommendations, there are 7 recommendations. And the first recommendation is that we expect, Honorable Minister, that we are going to increase the funding for education, especially in moving towards 60% of the GDP and 20% of the national budget as per the international benchmark. And we think that this budget should support the subsectors which are not doing very well, especially CD, adult literacy, secondary, and higher. The second one is the government should increase in capital budget so that the sector receives sufficient resources to address the infrastructure challenges. So I've mentioned that if we have to give hope to primary school students that they will get to secondary and university levels, we need more investment in terms of schools, colleges, and universities. We need to increase the budget for higher education loans board and secondary bursary for more needed students. I think this is clear. But also we feel at this point we should abolish manual exams, especially at primary level. It does not make sense to say we have free primary education and we charge our primary school students fees barring from writing examinations. But also, I think in view of the disasters that we are experiencing, we need to safeguard the social sector budgets, especially for cash transfers, child protection, so that we effectively safeguard the children's rights. And the Ministry of Finance to ensure timely has been a challenge, especially in the education sector. Schools, the cost centers have been complaining on late disbursements. But also the Ministry of Education and other sector ministries should improve expenditure to avoid project delays. Honorable Minister, this is the last one, and maybe you will like it because basically we say you are demanding, but where is the money coming from? So we are suggesting some funding options. Last year, Honorable Minister, when you announced that in Parliament that you had increased the CDF budget, there was a lot of applause from members of Parliament. And I think the budget was easily passed because of that. So I want to propose that we also increase the CDF this year. But when we increase, we should ring fence at least 10% of that CDF for education services and bursaries. When we went and checked in the districts, we noticed that the CDF, some members of Parliament, yes, using the funds to support education services, but others are doing that. So we want more resources so that even small amount of paying 20,000 fees for exams or 25,000 contribution at CDSS, these can be catered for at constituency level. But also we think that if we introduce levies, like the education levy or higher education levy, this can bring in substantial resources. We already have the TVET levy, which has performed very well and has provided substantial revenue for the TVET sector. I feel that if we have an education levy, it would be great for the sector. Last Thursday, I attended a higher education sector bill consultation meeting in Imponera, and one of the recommendations is to introduce a higher education levy. And that this can help to construct more colleges, universities, lecture rooms, and so on. But also in higher education, we feel our higher education institutions can be more innovative, especially if they introduce and attract more international students and commercial fee-paying students. We know that like private universities are depending on the fees, but the fees that are in public universities are already high. But if we attract international students and the commercial fee-paying students, maybe these ones can pay higher fees and increase the revenue. Sometimes I wonder why higher education, where all the creativity and innovation and engineering, and even in terms of proposing solutions for the government is supposed to be, the higher education is dependent on the subventions. So I think higher education institutions should be more innovative, and we feel that they can get more from international students. But also, we need to tap some revenue from diaspora remittances. Honorable Minister, in your early days after you were appointed, you used to talk more about the diaspora. That language seems to have faded over the years. But I think the vision that you had to incentivize and attract the diaspora, I think that one can help, because revenue from diaspora remittances can assist in increasing domestic revenue for the country. I know that in Ethiopia, they have a lot of infrastructure projects supported by the diaspora. If you go to South Africa, Nigeria, they're getting a lot of revenue from there. And when I read recent reports on Malawi, the diaspora actually are contributing a lot of money in terms of remittances. So if we can bring out incentives to attract the diaspora, I'm sure that we can raise enough revenue. The last one is on the 1st January, I listened to the address by Pope Francis during the Angelus mid-hour address. So in his message, he called upon rich countries to consider canceling or significantly reducing debts. And this is because he announced that 2025 is a Jubilee year. So just like in 2000, in Jubilee years, one of the campaigns that is done is debt cancellation campaign. I'm sure that the civil society, government, the churches, we can join hands to support the call by Pope Francis so that the Malawi's public debt, maybe it can be cancelled, and then maybe we can start afresh, bearing in mind also what happened after the 2006 debt cancellation. We would need to reduce over expenditures and behaviors that will attract more debt. But at least for now, maybe as a Jubilee year, we should have a Jubilee gift of debt cancellation. But that can only be done if we support the advocacy and lobbying around debt cancellation. Honorable Minister, I would like to thank you for your attention. You know, as teachers, we are not reminded that our time is up. So I'm happy that I end here my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We did remind you, but only that because you are a teacher. Next Minister is Mr. George Jobe, representing the health sector. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, observe, as someone is coming to help me, the presentation I'll start, because I use the Apple Macintosh, and here the presentations cannot be located. Please, can you assist? Honorable Minister, it's a pleasure to make a submission before you for the health sector. This presentation is coming from Malawi Health Equity Network, which is a network of over 100 civil society organizations, both local and international. And also, it has some input from Joneha. This is an association of journalists living with or affected by HIV and AIDS. Let me also mention that Mehen is the chair of Universal Health Coverage Coalition in the country. As a matter of introduction, the health sector is very important because even after being educated, we need health. When we are working in the office implementing whatever policies, we need health. And Malawi is part of universal health coverage movement, and also health is one of the enablers of Malawi 63. Let me start with your appreciation, Honorable Minister.
that in the current budget, it is at 12.2%, which is getting closer to Abuja, 15%. We wanted to appreciate that. And also recruitments that have been done in the year for HSAs and other cadres. Introduction of what is called direct facility financing. As you may remember, we have been advocating for introduction of health facility improvement grant. So we see this as a response. And also hearing from Minister of Health, there's now talk of introduction of National Health Fund, which has also been one of our submissions to your ministry. And there has been procurement of MRI scanner, which in the past was only in our private health facilities. So we really appreciate. And our submission comes in because we still have challenges in the health sector. And most of the challenges border or rely on financing. For example, government signed the Abuja Declaration, which talks about 15%. We are still below 15%. We still have a high vacancy rate in the health sector, apart from the recruitments that have been done, including some cadres that are being affected. And also, there is service level agreements that districts have been signing with the CHAMO facilities, but these are not covering the whole essential health package, which means that someone who is close to a CHAMO facility will be destined to be paying something the whole of their life. And the road accidents, as well as the increases in the NCDs, and we have seen suicide activities happening in the country, and stockouts of some essential medicines. So because of these challenges, we call them key because we have a number of challenges. This is why we have to make our submission. And we start with the question which the education sector answered at the end, as to where can we get the money. As we have made recommendations before, here we come again to say that the carbon tax that government collects was advocated by Malawi Health Equity Network. Could a percentage of that go to that National Health Fund? And also, the past 2 years, we have made a submission that because road accidents eat into the health budget, can there be a consideration that the motorists contribute something to the National Health Fund? Either it could be part of the COF, it could be either 500,000, it could be 500 kwacha, it could be 1,000 kwacha, but that everyone must at least contribute something. Either you would be involved in a road accident or you can cause a road accident. And the visa, for introduced visa, there should be a percentage on visas that for people coming into the country. And also our motorcycle cyclists must also be paying something, contributing to the National Health Fund. Now we make our submissions in form of requests. The first one still goes to the Abuja. Honorable Minister, knowing that you have been in the health sector in your previous life, and I cannot say it here that you were also part of Mehen. So I'm talking to former Mehen here. Abuja is very important to answer the challenges that we have expressed here. And let me also mention here, apart from Abuja, because we are talking about universal health coverage, we also talk about the capital allocation. WHO recommends that everyone must be allocated at least $86. But at the moment, it is at $39.9, both from donors and from government. So when we are at that level, it means the citizens have less allocations towards them.
You have 3 minutes.
And because we have talked about the family planning somewhere as a challenge, there's need for an increase towards the reproductive health, sexual reproductive health, especially amongst the youth. And also increase allocation towards the drugs, as well as the ARVs. On the drugs, because of the stockouts that we have experienced. On ARVs, Malawi committed to contribute at least 50, there's a 50-50 co-financing agreement with the Global Fund. And we recommend that this must be increased from 0.2% to at least 5.2%, so that in case of donor shrinking, we still have cushion from government funding. The recruitments, we still need them. And also, we need a dialysis machine in Nzuzu, at Nzuzu Central Hospital. We have at Queens and the KCH, and people from around Nzuzu Central Hospital, they come to Lilongwe. Construction of district hospitals where we have cities, we still maintain that request, or what the Minister of Health is talking about, that they want to have community hospitals in our cities. Now, coming to higher education, we solicited input from different stakeholders in the health sector, including nursing schools and the Kamuzu University for Health Sciences. They have challenges sometimes to supervise and provide the needed services towards the students. So we request that government or your ministry should increase allocation to KUHES. And then we come to another sector, which is also part of the health sector, persons with disabilities. We request that there should be a waiver on duty on assistive devices. Here we talk about the automatic cars, and we also we have talked about NCDs. Also, the Disability Trust Fund, which was introduced by government, we ask that it should be increased and allocate restricted funds under Minister of Health for procurement of continence management supplies. Those who are involved in road accidents, some of them need catheters and the like, but they cannot manage because some are poor. So Minister of Health must be providing for that. Under the same education institutions, also there's need for loans towards nursing schools, because we have seen some struggling. Honorable Minister, there was a recommendation after we lost a head of state that Malawi must construct a military hospital, state-of-the-art hospital. We have been making this submission the past 3 years. With your assurance that you have them on your database, would want to remind the ministry that this at least needs to be considered. At least if we can start the construction. The cancer center needs to be opened at least this year. We've been moving. We know there was an issue of construction of bunkers, but towards the end of 2024, we are told that the bunkers were now completed. We were told it would be opened this year. Let us open as the planned this year in May, as it has been stated. We request that there should be an expansion of service level agreements to include the whole essential package, especially also Likoma, which does not have a health facility. That everyone, when they go there, it should be paid for by government. Domasi and the Mponela community hospitals need to be completed and be opened. Whatever final touches we have been talking about, the percentages, 80% or 70%, so that, for example, for Domas, it can support the Zomba Central Hospital as a district hospital. There's the Kochirira, which used to be a rural hospital, but it was downgraded to a health facility. This is in Nchinji. We submit, Honorable Minister, that it must go back, be improved as a community hospital. And when we talk about cholera and the other waterborne diseases, sanitation is very important. Our councils need the resources in refuse management, waste management, and the like. So these are our submissions. Thank you very much.
Our last presentation, it will be from Sisonek and be done by Mr. Matthews Malata. You have the floor.
Good morning, Honorable Minister of Finance and all distinguished guests that are in this room. And let me also ride on the protocols that have been established already at the start of this meeting. It's surprising, the audience is quite gloomy. I don't know what is happening, but we can afford a smile. We are still in the morning. I know we are all anticipating what is going to happen next. So I'm simply coming in for Sisonek. Unfortunately, the coordinator is somehow sick and he couldn't make it, so I had to come in and present a few things on behalf of the network, as well as other concerned people. Honorable Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to highlight that we have multiple crises in our environment sector. We are talking about the deforestation crisis. For your own information, 40% of our soils are sick. % of our soils are sick. So it doesn't matter how much fertilizer we can invest in these soils, how much effort we can do to expand our agriculture without taking care of our environment, of ourselves, meaning that we need to rehabilitate ourselves because they are bad. 98% of Malawians are still using biomass energy for cooking. Energy access is still on the lower side, below 30%, maybe 25%, 13% from the national grid, and the rest is solar. 1% of you people that have got access to electricity in your homes are the only ones using electricity for cooking. What are the rest of you using for cooking? Obviously, illegal charcoal from Zalanyama and other places. That is a crisis. 30 tons of soil per hectare per year are vanishing. What does that mean? We are destroying our aquatic systems. At the same time, we are also making it impossible for all of us to do agriculture in a manner that it should be done. And sustainable fishing, how many of you have eaten jumbo for the past 1 week or 2 weeks? It's difficult to get jumbo. If you get it, it's expensive. That is a problem. That is a crisis. Most of us Malawians do rely on fish as #1 source of protein. I don't know if that is still the case. We need to make our budget in a way that it speaks to the existing as well as current challenges. Waste management. Almost all the councils in this country do not have garbage collecting trucks. How do we exist in such kind of a society? That is a crisis. We need to rectify that. There are other issues, for example, unsustainable mining, encroachment to our wetlands, as well as urban green spaces, and poor record of compliance and governance in the management sector, as well as disaster risk management. On disaster risk management, let me say billions are being wiped away because of the recurring disasters that we have had as a country, but also because of a huge budget on response activities. Now, let me talk about the real things in terms of what needs to be done as we are framing this budget. The key message is we need to increase funding towards environment and natural resources management, as well as climate change. I'll start by talking about the carbon levy, which was introduced in this country. Thanks. Part of the money was already given to MEPA, but most of it is still with the Ministry of Finance. We hope that we can improve when it comes to accountability, but it is also our hope that all carbon levy funds must be invested back into the environment, not forgetting targeting young people and innovators who have got brilliant ideas, but they're failing to take off with their innovations because of lack of the small capital which they need. We also think there is need for special allocation to the climate change account, which we have, in addition to the carbon levy, because the demands are so huge. Honorable Minister, allow me to turn to the issue of carbon trading. We are aware that your ministry, together with the Malawi Carbon Markets Initiative in the country, is seriously promoting the issue of carbon trading, which is very good. But I just want to remind all of us that this innovation is coming under the Paris Agreement, which is a component of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC in short, in order to help countries mitigate the impacts of climate change. We want to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that we are emitting, but also increase our adaptation interventions. And therefore, it is our hope and plea that, first of all, as a country, we're going to be transparent enough in terms of the way we are signing carbon trading deals in this country, as well as the way we are utilizing these resources. We hope and we want that resources coming from these initiatives must be invested in a wide range of climate change mitigation as well as adaptation programs. Minister, allow me to shift to forestry management. We have a deforestation crisis, like I said earlier. We always talk about poverty as an excuse, but that is not entirely true. We believe we have serious funding, law enforcement, integrity, corruption, as well as capacity issues. And therefore, to deal with these issues, we need to increase financial allocation to the forestry department in this country in order to curb deforestation as well as forest degradation, not forgetting biodiversity loss. We would like to see the Ministry of Finance giving the Department of Forestry at least more resources so that they can recruit more forestry officers on the ground and also fill in important vacancies. Let me commend the ministry as well as the government, because they are on track on this agenda. For the past 2 or 3 years, they've been able to do that. This was not done by the rest of the governments, and this was never a priority. So we hope that you can build on that and make sure that we continue to do better, because currently the presence of these comrades on the ground is less visible, and that is what is also exacerbating the challenge that we have at the moment. If you invest resources to the Forestry Department, Honorable Minister, it will also help them invest in modern surveillance equipment. We're talking about drones. Days of driving through this thick forest and everything using dilapidated vehicles are gone. Can they procure some drones so that they should make monitoring so easy in these protected areas? We hope that is possible. You know, our forest officials are never found in the bush. Why? There are no camps. There's nowhere for them to hide or do anything else.
To wind up.
So, let's make sure that we, thank you, sir, for the reminder. I didn't appreciate. You're doing a good job. Let me say that we need to invest in these camps so that we can really support our officials on the ground to do the right job. Forest Research Institute is a sleeping giant. We want to detach it from the Department of Forestry, and therefore, as we are planning this budget, make sure that we have resources that can facilitate this detachment. management of our plantations, Honorable Minister, that is a huge potential. Unfortunately, we are losing out big time. There's a lot of revenue you can get from our local plantations. But the way timber is being sold out or exported to other countries is just pathetic. I understand the Department of Forestry did try to revise some of the rates and fees, but unfortunately, some of the concessionaires, they did obtain an injunction from the court. We hope that we can work with judiciary to remove this injunction and engage players so that at least as a government you can maximize revenue from these plantations. As I'll be winding up, Honorable Minister, allow me to talk about the issue of sustainable energy. In short, we want to see the government promoting legal use of sustainable charcoal as well as other sustainable energy interventions. For example, we want to see the ministry removing import duty and VAT on equipment as well as components, even service parts or machinery for producing briquettes in this country. We have got so many young people that have tried out these technologies, but they can't take off because they need huge capital to bring into the country these briquettes. So please, may you consider our plea. But we also would like to ask you, Honorable Minister, and the entire team to further reduce taxes and as well as or related taxes as well as VAT on LPG, which is liquefied petroleum gas, and related accessories. Also consider removing tax on sustainable charcoal. If you buy sustainable charcoal, Kandi Bambriki, there is Kawandama, there is tax on it. Yet, at the same time, we're talking about helping our forests to recover. That cannot happen. So please, let's think many times about that and see how best we can assist each other. Use of electric equipment is also very essential. Most of us do not consider use of electricity as an alternative to illegal charcoal, but that is very important. But some of the equipment is still on the higher side, and hopefully we can find a solution together. There is an issue of disaster risk management. The President did assent to the Disaster Risk Management Bill in December 2023, and in there is a clause for us as a country to establish a Disaster Risk Management Trust Fund. Since 2023 up to date, that fund has not rolled out. We are only using the unforeseen vote, and we're still focused on response mechanisms. We hope that through this budget, we can roll out the Disaster Risk Management Fund, Honorable Minister, so that we can invest in disaster risk management as a whole unit, as well as improve our preparedness. I've jumped so many points, Bwana William, and allow me to conclude to say, the other issue which we need to address is the waste management. Our councils are incapacitated, and therefore, we hope that we can bail out some of these councils so that they can really have the equipment that we need, like the garbage trucks I talked about earlier. In addition to that, they can also work with the private sector or private operators. In this case, some of them, they only need a small push in terms of importing these garbage trucks, maybe duty-free, so that they can help resolve the climate, rather the waste management crisis that we have in the country. On the issue of thin plastics, we have been talking about the court issue for so long, but you have the capacity as a ministry to put in place other fiscal measures to control the use and importation as well as production of thin plastics in this country. Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, they have done it, and I hope we can also learn from them, and we believe that this can be done. On the other hand, we should create incentives for those that are willing to produce alternatives to thin plastics, woven bags, paper bags, and so many other things. So let's not just rely on the court battle, but let's also find other alternative means. And this takes me to the national cleanup exercise, which His Excellency the President, Dr. Lazarus MacArthur Chakwera, introduced in the country. He has not been supported on this agenda because there is nothing that was allocated to support this initiative. We would like to see this initiative growing and being institutionalized, and that can happen if we have got a bit of resources to use. So finally, we have got the Malawi Environment Protection Authority MEPA, established in 2017. It has been one of the slowest organizations to take off in this country. We hope that in this budget we can put in a bit of resources so that this organization can really take off and begin to work to enhance compliance as well as governance within the environment sector. At the moment, I think I can stop here, Honorable Minister. I'm sure we'll be making an official submission to your ministry, and hopefully some of the issues can be considered. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.
Thank you so much. Honorable Minister, at this juncture, let me invite Dr. Thomas Montali to get more inputs from the floor, and we'll be finishing at 12:30. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, allow me to ride on all the protocols that the moderator has already eloquently highlighted in the interest of time. I have a very small task this morning to basically moderate the question time. Now, I would want us to really not call it question time. This is about suggestions, contributions that you do have. So if you do have any areas for clarification, that's fine. We will have the relevant officials that are sitting here, including the minister, respond to some of the issues. But what this time really is more about is how do we make sure that we harness as much of the great contributions that can make our 2025-26 budget worth it. I think the time is not on our side. We only have about 30 minutes between now to 12:30. So I will limit in terms of inputs to about a minute each. The idea is to get as many of you to make your contributions. At the same time, the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs is open to getting more contributions in writing. So should you have certain suggestions that you still feel the authorities should take note of, please feel free to write. I will indeed get in touch with through William's office, or indeed directed to the ST or the Minister's office. But the time spent so far has been worthwhile. I think we've seen key issues that have emerged from all the presentations. Brilliant. I think you really did a great job. You should give yourself a very big hand, actually, those of you that presented. You did very well. But having done that, I just want to also highlight quickly that it seems the three key elements that are coming out, so that those of you that are going to make contributions, don't please contribute on the contributions that have already been made, so that we save time. Don't say, according as Luana said, I want to, no. We heard what Luana said, we heard what the others have said. So just bring forward what you think, your point that might have been missed by those that already shared, needs to be brought to the attention of the minister and the officials in the Ministry of Finance. But already we are seeing issues to do with food security coming out very top, productive sector, without neglecting the social sectors, which are also critical. But the key here is how to make sure that the revenues and the expenditures are balancing up. Where do we get the money from? Can you give us suggestions? How do we prioritize the expenditure so that we have a worthwhile budget this year? So if you've got ideas around those areas, this is the time. So please, you can raise up your hand if you have a suggestion to make, and we'll make sure that the mics get to you. Please, if you had 3 suggestions, choose your best one, the best out of the 3 that you have, and limit it to as much as possible to around a minute or thereabout. Yes, can I? Mics, please.
Hello, I think this is working quite all right.
Oh, you already have. Oh, they are sitting, some of, but I think in the other spaces, let's just be ready to give the colleagues the mics. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
And if you could, as much as possible, give your name and the institution that you're coming from.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kondon Kadango. I'm coming from Mabukata, the Contractor Association of Malawi. Mine is an issue which also came out clear in the last budget consultative meeting. We were talking on the issue of the withholding tax that was put on the construction industry, the 10%. The withholding tax does not really reflect on the actual amount that is supposed to be deducted from the sector, because by the end of the year you find that a contractor is left with less than the amount that is supposed to use. I know the government says that at the end of the year you can be able to reclaim it from the MRA, but that money is not meant to be saved. It's meant to be reinvested in the project. So you find that most of the construction projects are struggling in the country, and most of the contractors are struggling because they don't have funds left to them to put back in a project. Secondly, there's an issue of...
I said you should limit it to one, so get your best.
That
so can I come back to you on the next one? Can we pass it to the next one, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Agabe Kombe from Citizens for Justice and Equity. The mapempa anduna awonjezere ensonko ku zinthu zimene anasa amapindula nazo monga ngati mowa, ndudu ndi zinthu zina monga zodzikongoletsera like za cosmetics, zikhadabo artificial, tsitsi la kumutu. Akaonjezera nsonko umeneyo ndalama zake zigwire ntchito kumalipirira examination fee ya manebo ya ana aku primary school. Kuchokera chaka chinochi cholakalaka chathu ngati a Citizens for Justice and Equity, ana aku primary school asamalipire ndalama za manebo. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pretty much to the point. Can we, okay, I'll get a few more here before I come to this section, so just hold on. Yes, the two gentlemen there, gentleman and the lady. Maybe we start with the lady so that we start balancing out.
Thank you very much. I'm Marlene Kaliko from Child Legacy Hospital. I just wanted to contribute on the healthy sector. They have mentioned about the NCDs, and as you mentioned, mostly was focusing on the road traffic accidents, but still the NCDs, now we can say people are dying more of diabetes and hypertension. And in our essential healthy package, we are supposed to have those medications, but they are not there. We are focusing much on the infectious preventive medications like the HIV, malaria, but then we don't have any drugs, and yet people suffer much because they have to get the drugs each and every day. So if we can invest much on maybe supplying those medications, because there are a lot of people who are dying, they're having stroke, but then we don't have medication and they cannot afford to buy those medications, especially in CHAM hospitals where we need to pay. So if you can consider putting that in the essential health package. Thank you.
Loud and clear, thank you so much. Just next to you.
Okay, Honorable Minister, my name is Chandiwira Chisi. I work for WaterAid. I wanted to comment on health. I know everybody is asking for 20%, 15%, and I've got a suggestion of how perhaps the Ministry of Health can have a lesser proportion of money required in the next few years to come. And one of it is that if we can increase resource allocation to water, sanitation, and hygiene more, that will basically reduce the infections, because the disease burden basically is comprised of 50% contribution from preventable things like absence of water, sanitation, and hygiene. So I thank God that perhaps last year there was 202 billion allocated to water, sanitation, and hygiene, but we need a bit more in that sector. The last one is that even within the health sector, it's very sad that most of the healthcare facilities do not have functional water, sanitation, and hygiene systems, and this basically reinforces further infections at facility level. And yet, this remains a neglected area even within the health sector allocation. Thank you.
Thanks, Chandwira. Noted. Can we come to the gentleman here?
My name is Charles Chatapiri. from Pakiso Community Radio Station and Power Rights Control Service Organization. I'll speak in Chichewa because some of them are in the audience, they are not hearing us. Ndimafuna kuti ndingoonjezera komanso kupempha kwa nduna kuti ngati nkutheka chaka chino ndi chaka chamawa atawonjezerako ndalama ku Ministry of Health kuti mwina chipatala cha ku area 25 kumene kuja atamaphikirako chakudya kuti anthu amene ali kumene kuja akhoza kumadya chifukwa amayenda mtunda utali, ena amachokera kwa Chitukula, ena amachokera mtali kutali ndithu kwa Ngwangwa ndi malo ena. Ndiye mwina zitatero zikhoza kutithandiza kuti simachoke nayo kwa Ngwangwa, it's very difficult. Pomaliza ndimafuna
mati munene mfundo imodzi.
Okay, thank you.
Ndiye mwina tibwereranso kwa ino nthawi ina.
Okay, thanks very much, sir.
Uzamveka ziko.
Thank you.
Hey, up. Pasogolo.
Thank you so much. I'm Desmond Mohango from Center for Youth and Children Affairs, but also the NGO Coalition on Child Rights. My point is to ask the Minister to consider allocating resources or budget towards structuralization within the child development programming in the country, given the compound problems that are facing children in the country in terms of protection of children, access to education. The Ministry of Gender is poorly staffed, given that it has got a Department for Child Affairs, which is centrally located at its ministry headquarters and does not exist in the district councils. Despite a provision in the Child Care Protection and Justice Act that every district council shall designate an officer known as Secretary for Child Affairs, for over 14 years of the life of the CCPJA, none of the districts have allocated an officer in that capacity. And that's the reason the children are suffering. Other ministries are considered for community-based staff, but the child is not considered. Let me end by calling on the minister, and being somebody who's also coming from the background like myself, that we follow the fundamental principles on the rights of the child, which one of them is that the child should be the first call at every level of development planning, and therefore, as a state, let the child be the first call in the country, make sure that the child will survive and develop. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We've taken note of that. I will take 3 more from this side, then I'll now shift to this side. So can I have that? And then I'll come to you, sir, and the one at the back. And then those 3, then we'll shift to this side.
Thank you. I'm Bena from Spinal Injury Association of Malawi, and I'm one of the survivors of the road accident. So, my request to the minister is it possible that you can use a certain percentage from the toll gate collection to support the disability right fund, and even support increased funding to Lions Hospital at KCH, because they are assisting a lot of people who are involved in road accident. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Well noted. Sir.
Allow me to speak while standing.
Oh, you're most welcome.
And Bwana Thomas Mutali, ours is very pertinent. Please bear with us. Allow us to speak and voice out, because Honorable Minister said, speak up your mind. So
the request should be directed to the minister.
Yes.
Honorable Minister. Okay.
The request is directed to First Commissioner General, Honorable Daniel Dominic Daka, our own son from Tikoliwe village in Chinji, and to the Honorable Minister, Simplex Chichola Banda. I'm from Mabukata, voice of contractors in Malawi. My name is John Ara Zinyongo. We got this.
All right, so I will give you 2 minutes instead of the 1 minute that I'm giving to the rest because the minister has given you that authorization.
Thanks very much for that, granted. Our issue is very pertinent. It's the issue of raising rate of withholding tax from 4% to 10%. I believe, and we believe as a construction sector, that advisory role for this issue of taxation comes from MRA. This issue was first initiated by the outgoing Commissioner General John Biswick. And we had been lamenting, from lamentation up to mourning. Bear this in mind that construction industry is mourning right now. Our request is, as you be deliberating your issues at the August House, Honorable Simplex Chichora, please simplify the rate from 4% to 10% and break. I'm taking advantage of your name, Simplex Chichora. Simplify the rate and break down the yoke of contractors which we are facing. This is really a heavy burden in construction industry. Please consider, and we'll make sure we make follow-up on it after budget deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I'm sure the minister in his closing responses, he might touch on it. I had one left here, and then after that, we're moving here. Yes, please.
Ine Zinanga, ndi Collins Nsenga, ndikuchokera ndikuyimirira Malawi Congress Party Research Department. Ndi ma issues angapo komano apa ndibweretsa issue imodzi ya AIP. Maganizo anga ndimaganiza kuti AIP ndi programu yabwino of which inapangidwa kuti ithandize food security at household level. Now, chimene chinavuta ndi management. My suggestion is itapangidwa AIP ngati project so that ikhalaso ndi phase out strategy kumapedoko, because isingango itaya chisawawa ya ndekuti sizithandiza. Itakhala project yoti ikhalaso ndi office yake bwinobwino pa district level kuti adzipanga coordinate ma activities wose pano paja. Ndiyeno zikatero pafuna kuti production imene ikuchitika through that project ikhale linked ndi ADMAC. ADMAC ija ndimona kuti ndi wabwino itapanga memorandum of understanding ndi ma farmers aja, so that zimene ma farmers aja akupeza akagulitsa kwa ADMAC kucha. Nde kuti tikatero zikhala kuti that production si kuchoka pomwepo, nde ali momwewo akadzazifuna adzagula kwa ADMAC yawo yomweyo, because tili ndi ma mega farm, koma mega farm aja ndiona kuti kwakukulu akupangidwa ndi ma private farmers, not the government. Kwambiri government ilibe control pa zimene mega farm ingalime that particular year, because mandate imeneyo ndi mwino wake wa farmuyo. Now ku mega farm kuja sikubweretsaso food security at household level momwe tikuyang'anira, komano mwina income kandi forex ikhoza kutuka kumene koko through mega farm, koma noti kuti chinthu chikafike pa khomo pa munthu. Chimene ndikutanthauza chionera kuti tiyelekeze kuti production.
I think your point has been made. Sir?
Yeah. Okay. Ndingomalizitsa.
Please.
What I mean is production ili kulumpi kuchalo, komano kumene kuli njala affected ndi kuchidi musanje kuti muchotse zinthu kuchalo kulumpi kuti zikafike kuchididi ndikovuta, unless this agreement itakhalapo yonena kuti no ADMAC ikagula, let's say yagula kuchalo kulumpi, kani transport zimene zikafika kuti kuchididi kunsanje komano momwe zilimu sizikuthandiza because means of transportation kuti choke one point to another zikuvuta. That's why njala yungopitirirabe.
All right, no, thank you so much, and you have been very kind. Can we move to this side? Okay, so we start from the back and come this side because we're already there. At the very back, we have about 10 minutes only, so please 1 minute. I want to get at least 10 from this side. Are you using a mic?
Okay, fine, yes. That is Zunguis. Okay, Honorable Minister, I am Vincent Rangel, and I have few points. Number one, we people with disabilities are failing to access NIF loans. Would you please, through Malawi Council for Disability Affairs, Makoda, and NIF, help us to be accessing such loans? Because if we go on merit, then Number two, would you please increase the special needs education through an act of parliament so that at least we have our own vote? Because pen and drama says the Minister of Education must divert. So it's not easy, Honorable Minister. Would you please consider that? And number three also we want.
No, thank you so much. We appreciate that. We have quite a few others, but you make very important points. Can we move to the next one?
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. My name is Rebecca Kadazi from Sisona. My plea is to seek for an increase in allocation for resources for nutrition in the upcoming budget. Currently, the allocation is 0.6%, but on the nutrition sector, we are failing to achieve effective nutrition to the nation. As I'm talking now, according to the SMART survey, 39% malnourished are stunted. And we have also seen an increase in non-communicable diseases. All this is because the resources for nutrition are very much limited. I'd like to submit that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Well noted. Can we have that corner there? Yes, please. In white.
Honorable Minister, my name is Richard Batch, Executive Director for Girls Activist Youth Organization. I want to make you can tap some of the resources under the corporate social responsibility, Honorable Minister, through different companies. That's where you can also tap some resources which can go towards the Minister of Education, especially in the construction of community day Sunday school and girls hostels in the community areas. Many girls are walking a long distance to reach one destination to access quality education. So we cannot talk on issues of quality education if girls are having challenges. So consider tapping some resources under the corporate social responsibilities through the different companies as well as the banks. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thanks so much for being to the point. Can you just move to the lady in front? The lady in front. I want to see more ladies' hands.
Honorable Minister, my name is Joanne Chingamba from For Equality. My point is coming from your opening remarks, where you pointed out that you're having negotiations with the IMF on having negotiations considering having repayments which are of long term. I just wanted to recommend you for that. And also looking at the budget last year, we allocated 1.97 trillion Malawian kwacha towards debt servicing, which is almost 52% of our national budget. And this is causing a lot of austerity measures, which are budget cuts to different specific allocations. And this is actually bringing a lot of strain to this country. So I would like to suggest that I understand that the IMF and the Malawian government have an agreement that it should be 50% and 60% ratio when it comes to debt servicing. Can we also negotiate that we should prioritize public servicing and not prioritize debt servicing, so that the allocated amounts should be prioritized to health, education, transport, as well as other sectors? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Can I have that lady in white there?
Okay, zinanga ndi Immaculate Edward, ndikuchokera ku Youth Forum for National Transformation yofunati. Ine maganizo anga alipo kumbali ya hefe. And maganizo ninazo kuti nkhani yokudzera ndi SRHR for adolescent komanso women and voice people with disabilities. Anthu amene amene amapanga wambiri amapanga face challenge kuti azipita ngati kuzipatala kuja kuti akapeze SRHR services. So nimeona kuti ndi bwino kuti apange invest mu already existing hubs amene ali nawo mu communities awo kuti asamente mtundu wautali ukafika kabweli 18 kapena 25 munthu auti achokera kuntandire kuti akapeze youth friendly services. So nimeona ngati mupange invest ma youth clubs aja komanso ma CBOs aja chifukwa kuti iwo aja ndi amene they can work better with voice youth and voice women. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Well noted. We'll come to the gentleman here. I will take 3 now. The gentleman here, and in front here.
Okay. I just wanted to ask the minister to consider. Okay, my name is Kennedy Rashid. I just wanted to ask the minister to consider funding the state-owned mining company. The president committed to open a state-owned mining company, but up to now, we don't have a state-owned mining company. Thank you.
Thanks so much, very much to the point. Maybe you can have Dr. Machila there just next, and then we come to you, sir. I know you lecturers talk too much. 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I'm Kennedy Machila from the Longo University of Agriculture and Natural Resource. Looking at the submission that people are making here, much of it, they are going towards the social safety nets. However, Honorable Minister, we are not overqualifying the production side. That is why, if you can look at the entire budget, 95% is ORT, and then we are missing out the 5%, which could have been the opposite of that. Now, may I submit to you that this particular year, we should at least put some money to actually build the capacity of mining, so that Malawi can actually reap more in the mining, because we know the map of our minerals, but we are not doing much. May I, on the same, reiterate that we should be able to have placement of students who can actually go to understudy the mineral identification, so that the Malawi can actually benefit from that. All these things that we are talking about here can be solved through mining. We have got precious stones just closer by Longo North route there, but if we can take serious look at that, this can be a game changer for Malawi. We can even give ourselves timelines. Within 2 years, we can actually start reaping the dividend out of that. My submission, Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Doc. Can we come here lastly? 1 minute.
Yeah. Honorable Minister, my name is Andrew Paul Jumula, member of the professional body, Machado District of Management Accountants. My simple request to Honorable Minister is that we would like you to make deliberate efforts to consider resource allocation to students who are pursuing tertiary education. From the presentation by the educants, it was rightly mentioned that 5.4 million primary school, there are 5.4 million students who are enrolled in primary school, but coming to tertiary education, only 80,000 are allocated places. However, to sustain that number is difficult. If you go to Unima and Mubas, look at the accommodation. It's pathetic. So I'd like to ask the honorable member to think of resource allocation for accommodation of our tertiary education students. Anyamata University, Asiganak University, is very pathetic. That Prime Minister could maybe at a time ma hostel, koma subira ma cafeteria, kuti anatu aja, ate kumakhala malo abwino. Kuti muone malo amene magona, kunja kwa hostel, kunja kwa university, zomvesa chisoni. Nje padakali pano, kholo kuti lipire malo 70,000, 150,000, 200,000 kwa anyamata ndi atsikana amene agona kuma hostel outside the university is very, very difficult with these economic challenges. Kachiwiri, timapemphanso minister kuti body.
I said only one.
Yes, only it's related.
I hope it's going to be 30 seconds.
No, yeah. Anyamata amafika malaptop kuti ma smartphone. Kodi sizingatheke kuti a minister atapanga partnership kupanga allocate mafunds ene kuti apange partnership na mobile providers, service providers, monga ngati mukwadziwa Malawi muno. Kuti at least mwina malaptop, mwina bando yoka at least zikhabwe yochipirapo. Komanso malaptops kwa makampani amene ngati kuwathandiza kuti ana awathe kumakhala malaptop ochipa. At least akhale malaptop ochipa. With these few remarks, Honourable Minister, I honor you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you make the last point important. I could have closed off a very important point. Honorable Minister, if you don't mind, we just had two key partners that wanted to talk. I think there's the Economics Consultative Association, Employers Consultative Association. When you belong to ECAM, I think everybody is ECAM. The ECAM, Employers Consultative Association of Malawi, if we can just give them a couple of minutes, I think they had very key pertinent issues to raise, as well as the retired civil servants group. We also give you just a couple of minutes. The minister has been gracious with the time, and then we can bounce off back to the minister that we wrap up this whole thing. Suffice to mention that all the points that you've been raising have been noted. The Ministry of Finance is taking note of those issues, including us at the National Planning Commission. So if you see that they have not, the minister will not respond to everything here, but these things are duly noted, and that when the teams are sitting back, they'll look at all those issues to see how they can be prioritized. So colleagues from ECAM, I think I saw the executive director at some point from ECAM. Is he here? Is gone out? Okay, so we no longer have ECAM. The retired civil servants? We also, I hope sana nyanyale kuti sitinapange prioritize ndatuluka. But I think they can always arrange a meeting with the minister and the ST for those issues, because I believe that the minister will be keen to listen to what comes out. I think at this point, if I'm allowed, Williams, can I pass back to you? Okay.
Thank you so much, Director General. Having reached this far, Honorable Minister, it is my humble duty to request you to close the meeting, and thereafter we'll have a closing prayer from Mr. Gandio, who will also bless the food which the people will have after this session. Thank you.
I hope it's afternoon now. It's no longer in the morning, so good afternoon. Yeah, the good afternoon response is good because you have voiced out. Ladies and gentlemen, the way pre-budget consultations are framed is that the minister is not supposed to respond to issues, but to take notes. Because the moment I start responding to individual contributions, it will be seen as if everything ends here. But allow me to indicate my appreciation for active participation of all the submissions made. By the way, Professor Emmanuel Kaunda, this event was intended to be a platform for civil society, because almost everybody who spoke before I became a politician, I belonged to their network. So each one of them is hoping that whatever they have submitted will see the light of the day. That's the most challenging part of being here when you have a background of civil society. However, the issues raised are very pertinent. I have also liked Professor Machira, is it Machira? Who raised some of the issues, trying to bring to us the shift in terms of how we frame this year's budget. The one that we are implementing has 30/70. But people still see that we can do better. And I think that's what we are getting from. My assurances are, number one, we have taken note of all the issues raised. And my technical teams are actually busy compiling the issues. If need be, we will still come back to you to ask for more information so that we can capture your issues the way you wanted them. It is also good and divine sometimes amidst challenges when people are able to appreciate the little and small progress made. The Abuja Declaration talks about 15%. Last year when I met some members from the Health Society, including Maziko Mademba, we said, let us do little something. 12.2%. You don't know how that was seen. The Global Fund recognized us. We were invited to Geneva and Kenya, just because we are seen to be moving towards achieving the 15% Abuja Declaration. We are talking about the CADIP in agriculture of 10%. We are also talking about education allocation. We've always had these discussions with Limbani. He knew I would talk about him. And Shah, even way back when he was doing his PhD in Zambia, on how best we can incentivize the education sector. And today the same issues are coming up. And now he's expectant. The same simplex we knew, I think, gonna do some miracles. But I need your players. I need your players to come up with a user-friendly budget that reflects the desires of Malawians. It is also very evident that most Malawians would like to take a different pathways in terms of how we look at our economy. Not traditional ways, but in addition to traditional ways. People are not now talking about mining, for instance. So we have the mining company, but we need to operationalize it. We have the Malawi Development Corporation has come back. But also we have the Malawi, or the Mining Regulatory Authority. All this is because we are tired seeing people stealing our minerals, and then this country doesn't benefit. Just a week ago, there was a clip that went viral, maybe you saw it, talking about the fortunes that we can get if we utilize the rutile deposits in Kasia. But I like what Professor Machila said. How much have we trained our people in the institutions of higher learning, including research and development, on mining, so that we can be able to quantify the mineral deposits, but also monetize them, so that we impact the GDP. Those are the issues that we need to talk about. My dear brother Malada, and the issues of climate change management. I'm happy that you've actually applauded us for little resources that we allocated for forestry management and the like. When I stood in the same room one day, I was talking about how we can diversify our economy. And in Chichewa I said, I was all over social media. The minister who promotes Ugulitsa Mpweya. They didn't know I was talking about carbon financing, carbon trading. Today, Malawi has started realizing from carbon financing. Whether it's lead plus done by sustainable water, or energy efficient cookstoves, or the solar power LED, we can be able, as this country, to generate more resources. And there is Malawi Carbon Market Initiative to coordinate all those. Previously, we used to go to Bunda, then there was Kabumak, promoting the same issues. Countries in Africa are benefiting more, but we haven't yet benefited quite a lot. Time has also come for us to focus our energy and efforts towards new means and ways of growing, developing our economy. What's next from now? When we have done with all the consultations, we'll compile and we'll see how best some key issues highlighted will feed into the budget. What we are doing is the budget processing. When the budget comes out, that's what we want, leaving no one behind. Any hope for the future? Yes. When I look at big heads here, big brains here, and their constructive contributions, I see the possibility of realizing a new Malawi that everybody will be saying, I contributed to where Malawi is now. Be part of the legacy. This is the time for us to come together, put our issues, build something. Who is not tired by being referred to as Cinderella? You know Cinderella? Beautiful but poor. So they say Malawi is beautiful. But later on they say Malawi is poor. That's not what we want. Time to change the economic narrative is now. So we are banking much on your contributions and assuring you that we'll take note of all these contributions. Achieving a better Malawi is possible. That's why I believe in the Ubuntu philosophy of one Malawi, one people, and one nation. And indeed, in that spirit and with that spirit, to come up with a budget that will resonate with many Malawians. Having said this, I am privileged and humbled enough to officially declare that today's consultations at BICC are closed, but in courts, because Mzuzu and Blantyre get ready, we are going there. I hope we can clap hands for ourselves, eh? china chimene chandisangalatsa kwambiri, I think people in the civil society sakalamba yayi. The way I looked at them in 10 years ago, ndimene swakuonekera ayobe ndazi zawo. And there is Desmond Mohango somewhere who has a child that is hard. Mulungu sangati sejonjo, right? Thank you very much for your attention.
Shall we pray? Woyera.
Tsopano tafika ku mtsiriziro kwa msonkhano umene umachitika kuno ku Bingu International Convention Center BICC mu mzinda wa Lilongwe, kumene nduna ya zachuma inabwera kuti idzamve ndi kutolera maganizo anthu komanso mabungwe osiyanasiyana pa ndondomeko ya zachuma chomwe boma ligwiritse ntchito kuyambira chaka chino cha 2025 mpaka chaka chamawa cha 2026. Aphungu aku nyumba ya malamulo asanayambe kukambirana ndondomeko imene akonzeyi. Zimenezi zimachitika chaka chilichonse ndithu kuti nduna ya zachuma imamva maganizo kuchokera kwa anthu mdziko muno pa zomwe akufuna kuti zichitike mu ndondomeko ya zachuma cha boma chaka chimenecho. Ndipo tu msonkhano umene wachitika lero lino kuno ku Lilongwe ndi woyamba chaka chino, ndipo malinga ndi dongosolo lomwe akonza, msonkhano wina ukuyenera kukhala ku mawa lachiwiri mu mzinda wa Mzuzu, ndipo lachisanu sabata yomwe ino msonkhanonso wonga omwewu ukuyenera kuchitika mu mzinda wa Blantyre. Ndiyetu kuno anthu osiyanasiyana komanso mabungwe osiyanasiyana apereka maganizo awo pa zomwe boma lingaganizire makamaka unduna wa zachuma pokonza ndondomeko ya zachuma ya chaka chino. Ndipo tu mbali zimene anaunika kwambiri ndizokhudza nkhani za umoyo, ngakhalenso nkhani za ulimi, maphunziro amene, komanso ngakhale nkhani za chilengedwe, kuti ataganizirako kuti zinthu ziziyenda bwino chilengedwe chisaonongeke mdziko muno, chipokanso zimadzetsa mavuto osiyanasiyana. Ngakhalenso aonako kumbali ya zamigodi kuti kumene kunso kufunika kuunikirako bwino, chimodzimodzinso njira zimene boma limapezera ndalama kuti lizitha kugwira ntchito zachitukuko zosiyanasiyana, kuti pakonera papezeke njira zosiyanasiyana zoti boma lingamathe kupeza kapena kutolera ndalama zokwanira kuti ntchito zachitukuko ziziyenda mdziko muno. Ndi ayi anduna azachuma Simplex Titular Banda afotokoza ndithu kuti ayi zonse zimene mwafotokoza muno tikaziunika kuti tiziganizire tikamakonza ndondomeko ya chuma cha boma kuyambira chaka chino mpaka chaka chamawa. Ndiye pakali pano ndimpatsire msanga Justin Nkwewu amene akufuna acheze ndi anthu awiri atatu. Justin.
Pakadali pano ndi mtsogoleri wa bungwe la Economics Association of Malawi, ECAMA, bungwe limene linali lachiwiri kupereka maganizo awo pa zomwe akufuna kuti zikhale mndondomeko ya zachuma ya 2025 mpaka na 2026. mtsogoleri wa bungweli ndi Dr. Betha Bangara Chigaza. Ndikulandireni.
Asikomo kwambiri.
Mwina koyambirira tatiuzeni mwachidule kwambiri maganizo amene mwapereka kuti akhale mndondomeko ya zachuma ya 2025-2026.
Kwambiri tinawunikirako koyambirira mmene budget ya chaka chatha inayendera, chifukwa pamakhala ndondomeko zina ndi zina zimene boma limayikamo kuti budget ijayitheke. Mwachitsanzo mwina malingaliro kuti kukwera mtengo kwa zinthu zikhala mwakuti, komanso mwina anzathu amene amatithandiza kumbali ya budget atithandiza ndalama mwakuti, zimene zijazo tinazitenga chifukwa chokuti tinaonetsetsa titafika pakati pa chaka chatha budget yathu inaonetsa kuti ngakhala amene amatithandiza ngakhale tinalingalira kuti mwina atithandiza ndi ndalama mwakuti, ndalama zimene zinabwera zinayizochepa kwambiri. China ndiye tinawunikirapo kuti ngati nkotheka mwina budget iyi ichepetse kudalira maiko akunja, chifukwa nthawi zambiri amatikhumudwitsa. Tinawunikiranso kuti ndondomeko imene imapatsidwa ya chitukuko kwambiri amatithandizanso ndi amene wanzathu akunjawa, mwakuti boma limayikako ndalama zochepa. Tanthauza kuti ndalama zikakhala sizinabwere choncho chokera kunja, ndiye kuti chitukuko mdziko muno sichiziyenda bwino. Ndiye tikamapita chitsogolo tikuyeneka kuti ngati tikufuna chitukuko a Malawi titenge ndalama zathu tiyike kumeneku. Komanso kungonjezerapo dziko lino likuthamanga ndi ndondomeko za agriculture, tourism, mining, komanso tayikakonso mwina manufacturing. Tinanena kuti ndondomeko yathu ya zachuma ikuyeneka idzirozera ku zimenezi, komanso ija timati mwina MIP1 Malawi 2063 zimene zili ndondomeko zazikulu zimene dziko lino limatengerapo kapena limatsatira kumbali za chitukuko. Timanenako kuti ngati tikutenga mwina ndalama zochepera 1% ya budget yathu kuyika ku mining, ndiye kuti sitikuchita bwino, chifukwa tikaonetsetsa ndalama zimene tikuvutika kupeza zimene zingayendetsa bwino budget zitha kuchokera ku mining. Tanthauza kuti boma litatirayika ndalama zambiri mwina ku mining, yayikanso ku zimene zokopa alendo, komanso agriculture imalandira kale ndalama zambiri koma zinazi zakhala zikucheperekedwa. Timapemphako kuti mwina ndondomeko imene ikubwerayi ayikeko ndalama zochuluka ku madera amenewo amene amakhala ndi ndalama zochepa, kuti mwina dziko lino lioneko kusintha. Titayika ndalama zambiri monga ngati ku miyala imene ya mtengo wapatali, komanso mwina ma investment ena ndi ena, ndiye kuti dziko lino ndalama zimene timasowa zakunjazi zikhala zikubwera ndithu mdziko muno.
Munanenaponso kumbali ya revenue collection kapena kuti kuzera m'misonkho. Munanenapo kuti mwina pali gulu lochepa lomwe limapangidwa tax, ndipo munapereka maganizo anu kumbali ya katoleredwe ka misonkho. Mumati chani?
Kwambiri tikatengera mwina misonkho imene matoleredwa mdziko muno, amene akupereka msonkho ambiri ndi ajamati mwina corporate tax, komanso anthu amene amagwira ntchito. Tikaonetsetsa mwina misonkho ina ndi yochepa, anthu amene amapereka pa anthu mwina 20 miliyoni mdziko muno, anthu opereka msonkho ndi yochepa kwambiri. Koma tikaonetsetsa Malawi muno mwa business wochuluka amene sadula msonkho, ndiye kwambiri timawunikirapo kuti kodi bwanji titatengapo mbali mwina ndikubweretsa anthu amene sadula misonkhowa kuti ayambenso kupereka misonkho, chifukwa tikubwereka kwambiri mdziko muno ifati misonkho yathu ndalama zimene tikutolera zimakhala zochepa. Koma titatengako mwina mbali yopangitsa anthu ena kuti azindikire za kupereka msonkho, ndipo anthu ambiri amene sapereka msonkho atayambako kupereka msonkho, ndiye kuti mdziko muno chuma chitha kuyambako kuyenda bwino. Kwambiri tinawunikirakonso kuti ngakhale zikutero komanso boma liyesetsenso kuti chuma chimenechi adzichendetsa bwino akatolera, ifo pena titha kumatolerako koma mwinanso ndalamazo osayenda bwino, osapindulanso moyenera.
Ayi, tathokoza kwambiri ameneyo mtsogoleri wa bungwe la ekama Mayi Betha Chigaza. Zikomo kwambiri. Pali anthu osiyanasiyana amene aperekapo maganizo awo, ndipo enanso amene anaperekapo maganizo awo ndi aja amatchedwa kuti educants. Koyambirira tangotifotokozera ni very brief kuti tikati educants timati chani?
Ya bungwe la educants, mawoti educants ndi amuchidach, amatanthauza kuti maphunziro. Soneza kuti maphunziro ndofunika, ndi bungwe la educants limalimbikisa maphunziro aku primary kwenikweni, komanso kuthandizira kuti achinyamata akhale ndi nzeru zoyenerera zoti atha kuthandiza pa chitukuko cha dziko. Komabe kunoko ndimachita present kuyimirira ndithu amabungwe omusaboma amene amagwira kumbali ya maphunziro kupatula Educans, palinso mgwirizano uja wa Civil Society Education Coalition ndi mabungwe ena.
Presentation yanu kapena zomwe mwapereka kwa anduna lero mwachidule kwambiri, mwauza kuti mu 2025-2026 national budget kapena ndondomeko ya zachuma mukhale zotani?
Chachikulu tikupempha kuti ku mbali ya maphunziro kupite ndalama zokwanira, chifukwa tikaonesesa pali mavuto ambiri kwenikweni. Tikaona ku ma universities kwachuluka ana ambiri amene ndovutika, maloni aja alipo koma amasowabe chithandizo china cha upkeep chimene chimakhala chovuta kwa iwo. Komanso tikapita kuma secondary school, boma linakonza ngati basari ya ana ovutika, pakufunika kuti basari imene iwonjezere chifukwa ana ambiri sakuchita access, mwina 50% yokhanda amene akuchita access. Komanso pafunika kuti boma lipitirize kumanga zipinda zophunzisira, komanso pakufunika kulemba aphunzitsi ambiri ntchito. Tinaona kuti pali aphunzitsi amene aphunzira ntchito yawo m'makoleji osiyanasiyana, koma kuti alembedwe ntchito zikuvuta chifukwa chakusowa kwa ndalama. Nde tapemphanso kuti papezeke ndalama zokwanira kuti zithe kuthandizira maphunziro. Ndipo timaona ngati njira zina zimene zingathe kuthandizira kuti maphunziro athandizidwe kumbali ya ndalama, timapempha kuti mwina fund ya CDF itakhala kuti ayiwonjezera, nde mwina percentage ina ya CDF ija izitha kuthandiza ku maphunziro, mwina kulipirira ana mafizi ndi zina zotero. Komanso boma litha kupeza ndalama pobweresa msonkho wa maphunziro. Msonkho umene utha kuyikidwa mosiyanasiyana, khaya mu kumowa, khaya ku tobacco ndi mbali zinazo, kuti at least ndalama zimene tingapeze kumeneko zithandizire maphunziro. Komanso timapempha kuti chaka chinoche timati ndi Jubilee Year imene Pope Francis anachita announce pa 1 January. Nde dziko lathuli likuvutika kwambiri chifukwa cha ngongole. Ndiye tigwirane manja a Malawi kuti tipemphe kuti mabungwe ndi maboma omwe amatipasa ngongole mwina atikhululukireko. Ndicho linga choti malo moti tizikapereka ndalama zambiri ku ngongole tizitha kuthandizana kumbali ya chitukuko.
Munanena bonso nkhani yomwe inandipasa chidwi kwambiri yokhuzana ndi mayeso amanebo a standard 8. Mwanena kuti mwina boma liganizirepo zongowathesa. Tafotokozani.
Nkhani imene ndiyoti padakali pano tikaona kuti pass rate ya mayeso amene aja standard 8 ili chama 83% on average. Maskulu ene kumakhala 100%. Kusonyeza kuti ndiye kuti m'masukulumo ana akuphunzira zimene zikuyenera ndithu kuti ali ndi nzeru zimene zingathandize kuti atha kupitiriza pa maphunziro awo. Chifukwa 83% na 100% ndi mbali yabwino. Koma chachikulu chimene chinatibwezeresa pamene chinatibweresa pa mfundo imene chayina kuti ana ambiri akuvutika kulipira timafizi tija timalipiridwa kuti alembe mayeso. Ndiye izi zikususana ndi mfundo zija za policy yathu imene timati maphunziro akhale aulere, chifukwa maphunziro ngati aulere kenanso boma kuzera mmanebu kumakalipirisa ana aja kuti alembe mayeso sizingakhale bwino. Mayeso amanebu ngati angathesedwe pa standard 8 ndiye kuti pakuyenera kukhala continuous assessment imene I think maiko ambiri amachita continuous assessment, ndicho linga choti aziona kuti kodi maphunziro akuyenda bwino kapena ayi. Ngati sizikuyenda bwino ndiye kuti atha kukonza zina. Ndalama zimene tingaziseve kuchita administer mayeso amene ajawo a standard 8 atha kuthandiza kumbali zina, mwina kuonjezera kumanga maskulu a secondary komanso even ma university.
ayi tathokoza kwambiri chifukwa chopeza nthawi wafotokozera Malawi zomwe mwapereka ku nduna ya zachuma lero.
Zikomo kwambiri.
Amenewo anali oyimirira mabungwe amene amamenyera ufulu okhuzana ndi zamaphunziro. Mwachidule kwambiri lero mmene tanenera kunena kuti ndi mkumano woyamba omwe pachizungu amati pre-budget consultation meeting. Mikumano imeneyi imakhalapo ndi cholinga chonena kuti unduna wa zachuma umve maganizo a Malawi komanso mabungwe osiyanasiyana kuti kodi mndondomeko ya zachuma mukhale zinthu zotani. Apa akuyang'ana ndondomeko ya 2025-2026 oyambirira kupereka maganizo awo anali a skulu ya ukachenjede ya Luwana amene wawo anapempha kwambiri kuti boma liyike ndalama zambiri kumbali ya zaulimi kuti zitukuke ndipo zitukule chuma cha dziko lino. Namvanso kuchokera kwa a Ekama amene afotokoza okha akuzera mwa mtsogoleri wawo Mayi Betha Chikaza zomwe apereka. Komanso tinamva kuchokera ku Mejin komwenso afotokoza zomwe zinali zogwirizanaso ndi zomwe Ekama inanena. Kenako tinazamva kumbali ya educants amene afotokozaso zomwe apereka ku nduna wa zachuma. Ndipo tinazamvanso kumbali ya anzathu omenyera maufulu okhuzana ndi zachilengedwe mosogozedwa ndi a Matthews Malata amene anapemphaso boma kuti pakhale ndalama zambiri zopita kumbali ya zachilengedwe. Kenako tinamvano kumbali ya anthu members of the public pa Chingerezi amene sakuyimira bungwe lina lililonse, ena akuyimirabe mabungwe koma mwina sanali ndi mwayi woti apite kusogolo kunena maganizo awo. Anapasidwanso mpata woti anenepo maganizo awo kuti akufuna kuti ndondomeko ya zachuma mukhale zinthu zotani. Kuchokera pano mmene ndikunenera pano nduna ya zachuma inyamuka lero lomwe akulowera ku Mzuzu komwe atakamveso maganizo a anthu kuchokera ku chigawo cha kumpoto. Maganizo amene wawa akaperekedwa mawa ndekuti nduna ya zachuma ndi akuluakulu ena ku ndunawo akachoka ku Mzuzu anyamukaso kupita mu mzinda wa Blantyre komwe Friday lomwe likubwerali akamveso maganizo a anthu kuchokera ku chigawo cha kumwera kuti kodi mu ndondomeko ya zachuma ya 2025-2026 mukhale zotani. Undunawu ukumemane a Malawi kwina kulikonse komwe muli kuti ngati muli ndi kuthekera ngati mayendedwe ndi malo ogona muli nawo mufike ku mikumano imeneyi salesa aliyense atha kulowa aliyense atha kufika muzanene kuti kodi mukufuna kuti mu ndondomeko ya zachuma ya 2025-2026 mukhale zotani. Nthawi zambiri mwina ya Malawi timatha kukhala kumadandaula chakuti mwina sichikuyenda bwino chakuti mwina tikanatere chakuti tikanapanga chonje. Mwayi wathu ndi umenewo. Tiyeni tifike ku mikumano imeneyi tinene maganizo athu kuti ndondomeko ya zachuma mukhale motani mukhale zotani. Munali ndi ine pano Justin Mkwewu ndipo tikumanenso mawa pamene tikhale mu mzinda wa Mzuzu live pano pa MBC TV komanso pa radio wireless yathu MBC Radio 1 komanso ku Blantyre tizakhalanso live. Kotero ngati simungakwanise kufikira malo amenewo musasinthe TV ndi wireless zanu zikhale MBC kuti mumve china chilichonse chomwe chitachitike kumeneko. Pakadali pano tikupasireninso kwa anzathu kukwacha mu mzinda wa Blantyre.